Tonight, under the cold moon, she's stripped of her pack status, mocked, rejected, utterly alone. But destiny has plans for the wolf everyone dismissed. The silver light cast harsh shadows across the clearing as Sera Blackwood stood in the center of the ceremonial circle, her bare feet against the frozen earth. Around her, the crescent moon pack formed a ring of judgmental faces, their eyes glowing amber in the moonlight. At 19, she should have been celebrating her official induction as a full pack member. Instead, she faced her third failed shifting attempt. Again, Alpha Kane Ashwith's deep voice cut through the night air, his massive frame silhouetted against the ancient oak trees. His dark eyes held something she couldn't read: disappointment? Pity? She couldn't bear to look long enough to tell. Sera closed her eyes, feeling the familiar burn of shame in her chest. Her wolf stirred restlessly beneath her skin, always there but never quite breaking free. She could sense its presence, feel its yearning, but something blocked the transformation every time. "I can feel her," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "She's right there. You just can't shift," Beta Marcus interrupted with a cruel laugh. "Face it, Sera. You're broken. A wolf who can't shift is no wolf at all." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Sera's heart hammered against her ribs as she opened her eyes to see faces twisted with scorn and disgust. These people had watched her grow up, had been like family once. Now they looked at her like she was diseased. "That's enough." Alpha Kane's voice carried the weight of absolute authority, silencing the pack instantly. He stepped forward, and Sera caught his scent: pine, leather, and something uniquely him that made her wolf whine with longing. "The decision stands. Sera Blackwood, you are hereby demoted to Omega status until you can prove your worth to this pack." The words hit like physical blows. Omega, the lowest rank. She would eat last, sleep in the servant quarters, and be subject to any pack member's orders. Her dreams of becoming a respected warrior, maybe even a beta someday, crumbled to dust. However, Kane continued, his gaze finding hers across the circle, "I believe everyone deserves a chance to find their place. You'll work directly under my supervision." Sera's breath caught. Working with the Alpha was either a blessing or a curse. She couldn't tell which. Kane Ashworth was 28, powerful beyond measure, and had never shown interest in any she-wolf despite the pack's pressure for him to choose a mate. He was also the only one who'd never openly mocked her failures. "Alpha," Marcus protested, "surely you don't want to waste time on a defective. Are you questioning my judgment, Beta?" Kane's tone dropped to a dangerous whisper, and Marcus immediately lowered his head in submission. "No, Alpha. Of course not." As the pack began to disperse, muttering among themselves, Sera remained frozen in the center of the circle. The weight of her new status pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. Tomorrow, everything would change. "Sera." Kane's voice was closer now. She looked up to find him standing just a few feet away, his expression unreadable. "Report to my office at dawn. We have work to do." He turned to leave, then paused. "And Sera? Don't let them break you. Some of the strongest wolves I've known were late bloomers." With that cryptic comment, he melted into the shadows, leaving Sera alone under the cold moon with questions burning in her chest and the faintest spark of hope flickering in her heart. Chapter 1. The servant quarters smelled like old wood and resignation. Sera sat on the narrow cot that would be her bed for the foreseeable future, staring at the small bag containing everything she owned. Her former room in the pack house had been reassigned within hours of the ceremony. Margaret Winters, the head Omega, had shown her to this windowless space with all the warmth of a funeral director. "Breakfast duty starts at 5, Margaret had said, her weathered face showing no sympathy. "Kitchen cleanup until 7, then report to wherever the Alpha needs you. Lunch prep starts at 11, dinner at 4. You'll eat after everyone else is served." She'd paused at the door. "And Sera? The other Omegas have earned their respect through service. You'll need to do the same." Now, as dawn approached, Sera lay awake listening to the sounds of the pack house, stirring to life above her. Footsteps, muffled conversations, the distant clatter of dishes. A world she was no longer truly part of. Her wolf paced restlessly, feeding off her emotional turmoil. "They don't understand," the inner voice whispered. "We are more than they know." "Are we?" Sera murmured into the darkness. "Because from where I'm sitting, we're exactly what they think, broken." A soft knock interrupted her self-pity. "Sera? It's time." Margaret's voice carried through the thin door. Sera dragged herself upright, pulled on her worn jeans and a plain t-shirt, and faced her first day as the pack's newest Omega. The kitchen was already bustling with activity when she arrived. 3 other Omegas moved with practiced efficiency, preparing breakfast for over 60 pack members. They glanced at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. "You're the failed shifter," said a young woman with prematurely gray hair. Her name was Lila, Sera remembered. "I'm surprised the Alpha didn't just exile you." Maybe he felt sorry for her. Another Omega chimed in. "Though I can't imagine why. My cousin was exiled for less." Sera kept her head down and began cracking eggs into a large bowl. The familiar rhythm of cooking soothed her nerves slightly. She'd always been good with her hands, whether preparing food or tending to injuries. Maybe she could find some small place here, even at the bottom of the hierarchy. "Sera." Margaret appeared beside her. "The Alpha wants his breakfast brought to his office. Black coffee, 2 eggs over easy wheat toast. Don't mess it up." Her heart hammered as she prepared the meal. Facing Kane again so soon after her humiliation felt like walking into a lion's den. But she couldn't afford to refuse or show weakness. The Alpha's office occupied the top floor of the pack house, accessible by a private staircase. Sera had been there exactly once before, when she was 12 and had gotten into a fight with a visiting pack member's son. Kane had been younger then, newly appointed after his father's death, but already carrying himself with unshakable authority. She knocked softly on the heavy oak door. "Enter." Kane sat behind an enormous desk covered in papers, maps, and what looked like financial reports. The morning light streaming through tall windows caught the gold flecks in his dark hair. He looked up as she entered, and she caught that familiar scent that made her wolf sit up and take notice. "Your breakfast, Alpha." She set the tray down carefully, trying not to notice how his presence filled the room. "Thank you." "Sit." "I should get back to the kitchen." "Sit, Sera." His tone brooked no argument. She perched on the edge of a leather chair across from his desk, acutely aware of her Omega status and plain clothes in his elegant office. Kane leaned back, studying her with those intense dark eyes. "Tell me about your wolf." The question caught her off guard. "Sir, your wolf. I can sense her, even if you can't shift. She's strong, isn't she?" Sera's breath hitched. No one had ever asked her that before. They were all too focused on what she couldn't do to wonder about what she could sense. "Yes," she whispered. She feels powerful. But something's blocking her. Every time I try to shift, it's like running into a wall." Kane nodded slowly. "Mental blocks are more common than you might think. Usually trauma-related." His eyes sharpened. "Do you remember anything unusual from your childhood? An accident, perhaps? A moment of intense fear?" Images flashed through her mind. A car crash when she was 7, her parents' deaths, waking up in the pack hospital with no memory of how she'd survived when they hadn't. She'd been found 3 miles from the wreckage, unconscious but uninjured. "My parents died when I was 7, she said quietly. "Car accident. I don't remember much about that night." Something shifted in Kane's expression. "I see. That would explain quite a lot." He stood, moving to the window that overlooked the pack's territory. "Sera, what if I told you that your inability to shift might not be weakness, but protection?" "I don't understand." He turned back to her, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before when someone looked at her: respect. Some wolves are born with abilities that are uncommon. Their human consciousness creates mental barriers to protect them until they're strong enough to handle the power safely. He paused. "Your scent carries traces of something I've only encountered once before." "What?" The word came out barely above a whisper. "Luna bloodline." The room seemed to spin around her. Luna bloodline meant leadership, meant power, meant everything she'd never dared dream of. It also meant she was potentially mated to an alpha, perhaps even the alpha sitting across from her. That's impossible, she breathed. My parents were mid-ranking pack members. I would have been tested. Not if someone wanted to keep you hidden. Kane's voice was gentle but serious. Luna bloodlines can skip generations, emerge unexpectedly. And if you were meant to be protected. He trailed off, studying her reaction. Sera's world tilted on its axis. If Kane was right, everything she believed about herself was wrong. But it also meant the pack had been treating their future Luna like trash. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Kane was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. Because this pack needs strong leadership. And because everyone deserves to know who they really are. He moved closer, and her wolf stirred restlessly at his proximity. But Sera, this information stays between us for now. If I'm right, there may be people who have worked very hard to keep you powerless. We need to be careful. A chill ran down her spine. Someone did this to me on purpose? Possibly. Luna bloodlines are rare and powerful. Some might see a potential Luna as a threat to their own ambitions. His jaw tightened. We'll figure out the truth. But first, we need to help your wolf break through those barriers safely. Hope bloomed in her chest for the first time in years. You really think I can shift? Kane's answer sent electricity through her veins. I think you're going to be magnificent. Chapter 2. 3 days of Omega duties had left Sera's hands raw and her pride in tatters, but her afternoon meetings with Kane kept hope alive in her chest. Today, he'd asked her to meet him at the training grounds after lunch, a request that had the other Omegas whispering behind her back. Alpha's pet, Lila had muttered while scrubbing pots. Thinks she's special because he feels sorry for her. Sera ignored the barbs and focused on the anticipation thrumming through her veins. Her wolf had been more restless than usual, pacing and whining as if sensing something important was about to happen. The training grounds lay at the edge of pack territory, a wide clearing surrounded by dense forest. Kane stood in the center, wearing simple jeans and a black t-shirt that emphasized his powerful build. He looked up as she approached, and that familiar electric tension sparked between them. You're late, he observed, but his tone held no real reproach. Margaret needed help with the lunch cleanup. Sera stopped a respectful distance away, still adjusting to the complex dynamics of her new status. Too close might be seen as presumptuous. Too far might insult him. Kane studied her for a moment, then gestured for her to come closer. Forget about Omega protocols when we're training. I need you focused, not worried about proper submission. The relief was immediate. She'd been tying herself in knots trying to navigate pack hierarchy while simultaneously dealing with the growing awareness that Kane might be her destined mate. Her wolf certainly thought so. She perked up every time he was near, flooding Sera with warmth and longing she tried desperately to hide. Now, Kane continued, beginning to circle her slowly. Shifting isn't just physical. It's a surrender of conscious control to let your wolf nature take over. But in your case, your human mind has built walls to protect you from something it perceives as dangerous. So, how do we tear down the walls? Carefully. He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. We're going to start with meditation and breathing exercises. I want you to close your eyes and find your wolf. Sera obeyed, immediately sensing her wolf's presence like a caged animal pacing in the depths of her consciousness. I can feel her. Good. Now, instead of trying to force her out, I want you to ask her what she's afraid of. The question seemed ridiculous, but Sera focused inward. Her wolf's response came as a flood of images and emotions, darkness, pain, the scent of blood, and an overwhelming sense of being hunted. Sera's eyes snapped open with a gasp. What did you see? Kane's voice was gentle but urgent. Darkness. Fear. Like something was hunting her. Hunting us. Sera wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the afternoon warmth. There was blood. Kane's expression darkened. That confirms my suspicions. Someone used magic to suppress your wolf, probably when you were very young. The trauma from your parents' death created the perfect opportunity. Magic. Sera's voice cracked. But that's forbidden in pack law. Forbidden doesn't mean impossible. Kane's jaw tightened. Dark magic leaves traces, especially when used on someone with Luna heritage. It's probably why your scent has always been different. Sera had noticed pack members sometimes seemed unsettled around her, though she'd assumed it was due to her shifting failures. Now she wondered if they were unconsciously sensing something else entirely. Can it be undone? Yes, but it requires breaking through the barriers gradually. Forcing it could damage your wolf permanently. Kane moved closer, his presence both comforting and electrifying. Are you willing to trust me with this? The process might bring back memories that have been buried. Looking into his dark eyes, Sera felt something click into place deep in her chest. This was about more than just shifting. This was about discovering who she was meant to be. And despite everything, she trusted Kane completely. Yes, she whispered. Kane's answering smile was fierce with approval. Then let's begin. Close your eyes again, but this time, I'm going to guide you through it. Sera closed her eyes and immediately felt Kane's hands settle gently on her shoulders. His touch sent warmth cascading through her system, and her wolf stirred with interest rather than fear. Focus on my voice, Kane murmured, his breath warm against her ear. I want you to picture a door in your mind. Behind that door is your wolf, but the door is locked. Don't try to break it down, just examine the lock. In her mind's eye, Sera saw a massive wooden door bound with thick chains and sealed with symbols that seemed to writhe and shift when she looked at them directly. The very sight made her wolf whimper and retreat deeper into the darkness. I see it, she breathed. But the symbols, they hurt to look at. Dark magic, Kane confirmed grimly. His hands tightened slightly on her shoulders, anchoring her. Now, I want you to imagine light, warm, golden light, flowing from your heart to those chains. Don't force it, just let it flow naturally. Sera tried to summon light, but all she found was the familiar wall of fear and pain that blocked her wolf. Frustration built in her chest. I can't, she said, opening her eyes. It's too strong. Kane studied her for a moment, then made a decision that would change everything. There's another way, he said quietly, but it requires complete trust. What kind of way? A mate bond connection. Even a partial one would give me the ability to lend you strength, help you break through the barriers. His eyes searched hers. But Sera, once we start down that path, there's no going back. A mate bond, even an incomplete one, is permanent. Sera's heart hammered against her ribs. The mate bond was sacred among werewolves, typically completed only after months or years of courtship. But standing here with Kane, feeling the electric pull between them and the way her wolf responded to his presence, she realized the truth she'd been avoiding. He was her mate, had always been her mate. Everything in her recognized him on a level deeper than conscious thought. You're my mate, she said simply. Kane's expression softened. I've known since you turned 18. I've been waiting for you to be ready, to be strong enough for what that means. And you think I'm ready now? I think you're the strongest person I know, he said with quiet conviction. And I think your wolf needs you to claim your power before someone else tries to stop you permanently. The weight of that statement settled over her. Someone had stolen her childhood, her confidence, her rightful place in the pack. But they were offering her something more precious than revenge. They were offering her Kane, her mate, her anchor in the storm. Show me, she whispered. Kane's eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to the surface. Are you sure? I'm sure. He stepped closer, one hand sliding up to cup her face while the other remained on her shoulder. Close your eyes, Sera. Let me in. This time, when she closed her eyes and reached for that locked door, she wasn't alone. Kane's presence flowed through her like liquid sunlight, warm and strong and utterly right. Together, they approached the chains binding her wolf. The symbols writhed more violently as they drew near, but Kane's strength supplemented hers, and the golden light that flowed from their joined souls began to dissolve the dark magic link by link. Her wolf stirred, tentatively approaching the weakening barriers. For the first time in 12 years, Sera felt her other half reaching back. Then the first chain snapped. Power flooded through her system like lightning, and Sera's eyes snapped open to find them glowing silver in reflection of Kane's gold. Around them, the very air seemed to shimmer with energy. "Holy shit," she breathed. Kane laughed, the sound rich with pride and relief. "Language, Luna." The title sent a thrill through her that had nothing to do with power and everything to do with the way he said it, like it was her name, like it was who she'd always been meant to be. But their moment of triumph was short-lived. From the forest surrounding the training ground came a low, threatening growl that raised the hair on the back of Sera's neck. They were no longer alone. Kane immediately shifted into protective mode, placing himself between Sera and the tree line. "We have company." 3 wolves emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing red in a way that made Sera's newly awakened instincts scream danger. These weren't pack wolves. They moved wrong, smelled wrong, and the malevolent intelligence in their gaze spoke of something far more sinister than a territorial dispute. "Rogues," Kane growled, his own wolf rising to the surface. But as Sera looked at them more closely, her enhanced senses picked up something else, the same twisted magical signature she'd felt around the chains binding her wolf. "Kane," she whispered urgently. "I don't think they're here by accident." The largest of the 3 rogues shifted into human form, revealing a scarred man with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Alpha Ashworth," he said with mock politeness. "And the little Luna to be. How convenient." Kane's body went rigid with fury. Marcus Thorne. I should have known. The name meant nothing to Sera, but Kane's reaction told her everything she needed to know. This was personal, and she was at the center of it. "You always were too smart for your own good, Alpha." Marcus smiled, showing teeth that were just a little too sharp. "Yes, I've been watching, waiting for this moment when the girl's power would finally surface." "Why?" Sera found her voice, though it came out steadier than she felt. "What do you want with me?" Marcus's cold eyes fixed on her, and she fought the urge to step back. "Want with you? My dear child, I created you. That power flowing through your veins? It belongs to me." Kane snarled, his wolf fighting for dominance. "You're the one who killed her parents. You're the one who bound her wolf." "Guilty as charged," Marcus said cheerfully. "Though I must say, she's exceeded my expectations. Luna blood is so much more potent when it's been aged properly, don't you think?" Horror crashed over Sera as the implications sank in. This man had orchestrated everything: her parents' death, her years of suffering, her isolation from the pack. Also, he could harvest her power when she came of age. Rage unlike anything she'd ever experienced flooded her system, and her wolf rose to meet it. The partial mate bond with Kane amplified the fury until power crackled visibly around her like electricity. "You're going to pay for what you've done," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the very ground beneath their feet vibrate. Marcus laughed. "Oh, my dear. I'm counting on it." The 3 rogues attacked simultaneously. Chapter 3. Time slowed as the 3 rogues launched themselves forward. Kane's shift was instantaneous, bones cracking and reforming as his massive black wolf emerged, a snarl tearing from his throat as he met the first attacker head-on. But Sera's attention locked onto Marcus Thorne as he began chanting in a language that made her skin crawl. Dark energy swirled around his hands, and she realized with crystal clarity that this wasn't just a physical attack. He was trying to complete the binding on her wolf, to steal her power before she could fully claim it. "No," she whispered, then louder, power thrumming through her voice. And oh, the remaining chains around her wolf's prison didn't just break, they exploded. Power erupted from Sera like a supernova, silver light blazing outward in all directions. The 2 rogues fighting Kane were thrown backward by the sheer force of it, and Marcus's spell shattered like glass. For the first time in 12 years, Sera felt her wolf completely free. The shift hit her like a tidal wave, every bone in her body restructuring, muscles expanding, senses exploding into hyperclarity. But unlike the painful, halting attempts of her past. This transformation was fluid, natural, magnificent. When it ended, she stood on four legs as a silver wolf nearly as large as Kane, her coat gleaming like moonlight and her eyes blazing with Luna power. Mine, Kane's voice echoed through their mate bond, filled with fierce pride and possessive satisfaction. My Luna. The rogues had recovered and were circling them now, but Sera could sense their uncertainty. They'd expected to face a powerless girl, not a fully awakened Luna with an alpha mate at her side. Marcus's face had gone pale, his cold confidence cracking. Impossible. The binding should have held for years yet. Let me show him impossible, Sera thought, and felt Kane's savage approval through their bond. She'd never fought as a wolf before, but the knowledge seemed to flow through her bloodline like ancestral memory. Luna wolves were built for battle, larger, faster, and deadlier than ordinary pack members. More than that, they carried the authority to command other wolves. The first rogue, a mangy brown wolf with yellow eyes, lunged for her throat. Sera sidestepped with liquid grace and caught him by the scruff, her powerful jaws clamping down. But instead of simply biting, instinct made her push power through the connection. Submit, she commanded, her Luna voice carrying absolute authority. The rogue's eyes went wide with shock before rolling back. He collapsed, completely unconscious from the psychic weight of her dominance. Holy shit, Kane's mental voice was tinged with awe. Sera, you just knocked him out with your aura. She didn't have time to process the implications before the second rogue attacked. This one was craftier, coming in low and fast, aiming for her legs. But her enhanced senses tracked his movement easily, and she leaped over him, landing on his back and driving him to the ground. Kane had pinned the third rogue, his massive jaws around the smaller wolf's throat in a clear threat. The remaining enemy went still, recognizing the futility of fighting two bonded mates. That left Marcus. Sera shifted back to human form, standing naked and unashamed as power continued to radiate from her skin like heat waves. Her hair had changed, still black, but now shot through with silver streaks that caught the light like metal. Her eyes blazed pure silver, and when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made the very air vibrate. You murdered my parents, she said, taking a step toward the dark mage. You stole 12 years of my life. You tortured me with your binding. Marcus backed away, but his retreat was cut short when he hit the solid wall of Kane's human form. The Alpha had shifted back as well, positioning himself to block any escape route. Now, Sera continued, power building around her like a visible aura. You're going to tell me exactly what you did, why you did it, and who helped you. You don't understand, Marcus said, desperation creeping into his voice. The power you carry, it's not meant for one person. Luna bloodlines are supposed to be shared, distributed among worthy wolves. You're hoarding strength that could strengthen an entire pack. Whose pack? Kane growled from behind him. Yours. Marcus's silence was answer enough. Sera felt pieces clicking together in her mind. You wanted to create your own pack of superwolves using my bloodline. That's why you needed me alive but powerless, so you could control me when the time came to breed. The look on Marcus's face confirmed her worst fears. She'd been nothing more than breeding stock to him, a resource to be harvested. Rage flooded her system again, but this time it was cold, controlled, and absolutely deadly. Kane, she said quietly, step back. Sera. Trust me. Kane hesitated, then moved away from Marcus. The dark mage immediately tried to run, but he made it less than 3 steps before Sera's power slammed into him like a physical force. Marcus fell to his knees, gasping. What are you doing? Justice, Sera replied simply. She reached out with her Luna abilities, feeling for the dark magic that clung to Marcus like a second skin. Every spell he'd ever cast had left traces, including the one that had killed her parents. With her enhanced perception, she could see the twisted web of power that surrounded him. I can see it all, she whispered, wonder mixing with horror in her voice. Every life you've taken, every spell you've cast. You're not just a rogue, Marcus. You're a necromancer. Kane snarled at the revelation. Necromancy was the darkest form of magic, forbidden by every supernatural law and punishable by death. The car crash, Sera continued, her power pressing deeper into Marcus's defenses. You used death magic to cause it. But something went wrong, didn't it? I survived when I should have died. The Luna bloodline, Marcus gasped out. It protected you, made you stronger than I anticipated. And that scared you. So you bound my wolf to keep me weak until you figured out how to harvest my power safely. Sera's eyes blazed brighter. But you made one crucial mistake, Marcus. What mistake? Sera smiled, and it was not a kind expression. You let me live long enough to find my mate. She reached deeper into his magical signature, unraveling the spells that had sustained him for decades. Marcus screamed as his stolen power began flowing back to its original sources, or in the case of the dead, dissipating harmlessly into the earth. Sera, stop. Kane's voice was gentle but firm. Don't become like him. She paused, feeling the seductive pull of absolute power. It would be so easy to take everything Marcus had stolen, to make him suffer as she had suffered. But Kane was right. That path led only to darkness. Instead, she did something far more elegant. Marcus Thorne, she said, her Luna voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. I strip you of your magic, your pack bonds, and your right to call yourself wolf. You are hereby banished from all supernatural communities, to live out your remaining days as the pathetic human you've proven yourself to be. The magical backlash was immediate and devastating. Marcus aged 20 years in as many seconds, his dark power consuming itself as it was forcibly severed from his soul. When it was over, he lay curled on the ground, completely mortal and broken. The local human authorities will find you here, Sera said coldly. I'm sure they'll be very interested in your connection to several unsolved missing persons cases. She turned away from him, dismissing his existence completely. Kane was watching her with an expression of mingled awe and pride that made her heart flutter despite everything that had just happened. That was incredible, he said softly. You didn't just defeat him, you unmade him. Is that what I did? Sera looked down at her hands, still crackling with residual power. It felt right, like I was restoring balance. That's exactly what Luna wolves are meant to do, Kane confirmed. You're not just my mate, Sera. You're a true Luna, a leader, a protector, a force for justice. The words settled into her soul like puzzle pieces finding their proper places. For the first time in her life, Sera felt completely, utterly herself. But their moment of revelation was interrupted by the sound of approaching vehicles. Pack warriors were arriving, alerted by the magical disturbance. What do we tell them? Sera asked, suddenly aware that she was still naked and glowing with power. Kane shrugged out of his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. The truth. That their Luna has awakened, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me. As the first of their pack mates emerged from their vehicles, Sera felt a new kind of nervousness. These were people who had mocked her, dismissed her, treated her as less than nothing. How would they react to discovering she outranked them all? Beta Marcus Winters, Margaret's son and Kane's second-in-command, was the first to approach. He took in the scene with sharp eyes, the unconscious rogues, the broken old man who had once been a powerful dark mage, and Sera herself, crackling with barely contained power. Alpha, Marcus said carefully. What happened here? We discovered who was responsible for the attacks on our borders, Kane replied. And we learned that Sera is Lunaborn. Marcus's eyes widened as he looked at Sera with new understanding. The silver streaks in her hair, the power radiating from her skin, the way even his alpha wolf was deferring to her presence, it all added up to something extraordinary. Luna, he said, dropping to one knee. I apologize for any disrespect I may have shown. Other warriors were arriving now, and one by one, they too recognized what Sera had become. Some looked shocked, others ashamed, but all of them showed the proper respect due to their Luna. All except one. This is ridiculous, came a sharp female voice from the back of the group. She's a failed shifter who got lucky. Having power doesn't automatically make her Luna material. The speaker was Victoria Sterling, daughter of the pack's former beta, and someone who had made no secret of her desire to become Kane's mate and the pack's Luna. She was beautiful, accomplished, and had been angling for the position since Kane took leadership. She was also, Sera realized with crystal clarity, about to learn a very important lesson about challenging a true Luna. Victoria, Kane's voice carried a warning. I suggest you reconsider your tone. But Victoria was too angry and jealous to think clearly. She stepped forward, her own wolf rising to the surface as she prepared to issue a direct challenge. I invoke Luna's right, Victoria declared. As a female pack member of Beta Bloodline, I challenge Sera Blackwood's claim to the Luna position. Shocked murmurs rippled through the assembled warriors. Luna's right was an ancient law that allowed high-ranking females to challenge for the Luna position through combat. It hadn't been invoked in over 50 years. Kane started to object, but Sera placed a gentle hand on his arm. I accept, she said simply. Victoria's eyes flashed with triumph. She had trained as a warrior her entire life, while Sera had never fought anyone as a wolf until tonight. What Victoria didn't understand was that Luna wolves didn't just fight, they dominated. Tomorrow at sunset, Sera continued, her voice carrying across the clearing with Luna authority. The traditional challenge circle. Winner takes all. As the crowd dispersed to prepare for the coming battle, Kane pulled Sera aside. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. Victoria is a skilled fighter. Sera looked up at her mate, feeling the strength of their bond flowing between them like an unbreakable chain. Kane, I just unmade a dark mage and took down 3 rogues without breaking a sweat. Victoria Sterling doesn't scare me. Kane's answering smile was fierce with pride. God, I love you. The words hit Sera like lightning, filling her with warmth that had nothing to do with power and everything to do with belonging. For the first time in her life, she was exactly where she was supposed to be, with the person she was meant to be with. I love you too, she whispered. Tomorrow, she would prove to the entire pack that she was their rightful Luna. But tonight, she had everything she needed. Chapter 4. The pack house buzzed with nervous energy the next morning. News of the Luna Challenge had spread like wildfire, and opinions were sharply divided. Sera could feel the tension in the air as she made her way to the kitchen for what might be her last morning of Omega duties. But when she arrived, Margaret Winters took one look at her and shook her head. Not today, Luna, the older woman said firmly. Your place is no longer in the kitchens. The title still sent a thrill through Sera, especially coming from someone who had been cold to her just yesterday. Margaret, I appreciate the gesture, but until the challenge is decided. The challenge is a formality, Margaret interrupted. We all saw what you did to that dark mage. Victoria Sterling may be a skilled fighter, but you're Lunaborn. There's no contest. If only it were that simple. Sera had spent the night researching Luna's right challenges in Kane's extensive library, and what she'd learned was sobering. The combat wasn't just physical. It tested every aspect of leadership, from strategic thinking to raw power to the ability to inspire loyalty. Victoria had been training for this possibility her entire life. Sera had been Luna for exactly 12 hours. Sera. Kane's voice drew her attention to the kitchen doorway where he stood with Beta Marcus and an older woman she recognized as Elena Rosewood, the pack's chief healer and unofficial historian. We need to talk, Kane continued. Elena has some information about Luna challenges that you need to hear. They gathered in Kane's office, the same room where Sera had first learned about her heritage just days ago. Elena settled into a chair with the careful movements of advanced age, her sharp gray eyes studying Sera with keen interest. So, the healer said without preamble, you're the Blackwood girl everyone thought was broken. I should have seen it sooner. You have your grandmother's eyes. My grandmother? Sera had never heard anything about her father's family beyond vague mentions that they'd died before she was born. Elena nodded. Luna is Adora Blackwood, one of the most powerful Lunists in pack history. She could heal with her touch, command storms, and inspire absolute loyalty in her warriors. The old woman's expression grew sad. She died in the plague of 1987, along with most of her bloodline. Your father was one of the few survivors, but he never showed Luna abilities. We assumed the bloodline had ended. But it skipped a generation, Kane said, understanding dawning in his voice. That's why no one suspected.
Exactly.
And it explains why your powers are so strong. They've been building for decades. Elena leaned forward. But that's not what worries me about tomorrow's challenge. Sera, what do you know about Luna's right combat? It's a formal duel between potential Lunas, judged by the pack elders, Sera recited. 3 phases: strategy, strength, and spirit. Correct, but incomplete. Each phase tests different aspects of Lunaship, and failing any one of them means losing the challenge entirely. Elena's voice grew grave. The strategy phase requires you to solve a complex scenario that tests your ability to lead in crisis. The strength phase is straightforward combat. But the spirit phase… She paused. That's where most challengers fail. What happens in the spirit phase? Sera asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. The pack judges whether you have the inner strength to put the pack's needs before your own, even unto death. It's not enough to be powerful, Sera. You have to be willing to sacrifice everything for your people. The weight of that responsibility settled on Sera's shoulders like a lead blanket. She'd gone from pack outcast to potential pack leader in less than a week. Did she really have what it took to guide and protect 60+ wolves? I can see the doubt in your eyes, Elena said gently. But let me tell you something about Luna wolves that you won't find in any book. We don't choose to become Lunas. We're born to it. Every instinct you have, every choice you make when the stakes are highest, will align with what's best for your pack. Trust yourself. After Elena and Beta Marcus left, Sera remained in Kane's office, staring out the window at the training grounds where tomorrow's challenge would take place. Second thoughts? Kane asked, moving to stand behind her chair. Third and fourth thoughts, Sera admitted. Kane, what if I'm not ready for this? What if being Lunaborn isn't enough? Kane's hands settled on her shoulders, the same gesture he'd used during their first training session. The mate bond hummed between them, offering comfort and strength. Do you remember what you told Marcus yesterday before you stripped his power?
Kane asked.
Which part? You said you were restoring balance. That's what Lunas do, Sera. We bring balance to the chaos. You've been doing it your whole life, without realizing it. Kane's voice was warm with conviction. Every time you helped in the kitchens without being asked, every time you took extra shifts so someone else could rest, every time you endured mockery without retaliating, you were being a Luna. Sera turned in her chair to look up at him. You really believe that? I know that. Kane cupped her face in his hands. Victoria Sterling is a good fighter and would make a competent beta. But she's never once put the pack's needs ahead of her own ambitions. You do it without thinking. His faith in her was overwhelming, but it also sparked something fierce in her chest. Maybe she was Lunaborn, and maybe she did have powerful abilities, but more than that, she wanted this. She wanted to protect these people, to lead them, to be worthy of Kane's love and trust. All right, she said, standing with new determination. Then let's make sure I'm ready. They spent the afternoon training, though it was unlike any training session Sera had ever imagined. Instead of focusing purely on combat, Kane worked with her on the 3 phases of Luna's right. For strategy, he presented her with complex scenarios. What would she do if the pack was attacked while she was away? How would she handle a famine that required difficult resource allocation? What if another alpha challenged Kane for leadership of the pack? Each question revealed layers of leadership she'd never considered. Being Luna wasn't just about power, it was about making impossible decisions with limited information and living with the consequences. The strength training was more straightforward. Kane shifted into his wolf form and came at her with controlled aggression, teaching her how to use her Luna abilities in combat. She learned to project dominance in waves, to sense an opponent's weaknesses, and to channel her power through physical strikes. But it was the spirit preparation that proved most challenging. The elders will try to break your resolve, Kane explained as they took a break near sunset. They'll present you with scenarios designed to test your willingness to sacrifice for the pack. Some of them might involve choosing between saving me or saving pack members. Sera's blood went cold. They would really do that? It's happened before. The spirit phase isn't theoretical, Sera. They use magic to create real situations that require real choices. Kane's expression was grim. Whatever they show you, remember, a true Luna always chooses the pack, even if it costs everything. The idea of choosing between Kane and the pack made Sera feel physically ill, but she understood the necessity. A Luna who would sacrifice her people for personal happiness wasn't fit to lead. I understand, she said quietly. That evening, as the pack gathered for dinner, Sera found herself the center of attention in a way that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Pack members who had ignored her for years now watched her every movement, looking for signs of the Luna she claimed to be. Victoria Sterling sat at the high table with the other senior pack members, her confidence radiating across the dining hall. She was beautiful in a sharp, predatory way, with auburn hair and amber eyes that seemed to catalog every person's loyalty. When she caught Sera watching, Victoria raised her wine glass in a mocking salute. "Nervous, little Luna?" Victoria called out, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet hall. Every eye turned to Sera, waiting to see how she would respond. The old Sera would have looked down, would have tried to make herself invisible. But the old Sera had never faced down a dark mage or stripped someone of their power with pure will. Sera stood slowly, her Luna presence filling the room like a tangible force. When she spoke, her voice carried easily to every corner of the hall without her needing to raise it. "Nervous?" Sera smiled, and there was something fierce and wild in it. "Victoria, tomorrow you'll learn the difference between ambition and destiny. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The challenge in her tone was unmistakable, and murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. Even pack members who had supported Victoria looked impressed by Sera's confidence. Victoria's eyes flashed with anger, but before she could respond, Kane stood as well. "Tomorrow we honor an ancient tradition," he said, his alpha voice commanding absolute attention. "Regardless of the outcome, both challengers deserve our respect. Tonight, we celebrate the strength of our pack and the bonds that unite us." It was a diplomatic response that honored both women while reinforcing pack unity. But Sera caught the look of pride in Kane's eyes as he spoke, and warmth flooded through their mate bond. As the evening wound down, Sera found herself approached by pack members she'd barely spoken to in years. Some offered encouragement, others asked questions about her newfound abilities, and a few simply wanted to apologize for their past treatment of her. "Luna," came a tentative voice from behind her. Sera turned to find Lila, the gray-haired Omega who had been particularly cruel in recent days. The woman looked deeply uncomfortable but determined. "I wanted to apologize," Lila said, not meeting Sera's eyes. "I said terrible things about you, and I was wrong. I let my own bitterness make me cruel." Sera studied the other woman for a moment, then placed a gentle hand on Lila's shoulder. "We all make mistakes when we're hurting. What matters is that we learn from them." Lila's eyes filled with tears. "You're going to be an incredible Luna." Similar conversations happened throughout the evening, and by the time Sera made it back to her room, she'd been moved to proper guest quarters after the previous night's events. She was emotionally drained, but oddly hopeful. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Kane entered, carrying 2 cups of tea, and wearing an expression of mingled concern and admiration. "How are you holding up?" he asked, offering her one of the cups. "Better than I expected," Sera admitted, settling onto the small couch by the window. "For years I wondered what was wrong with me, why I never fit in. Now I'm starting to understand that maybe I wasn't supposed to fit in, I was supposed to lead." Kane sat beside her, close enough that their thighs touched. That's exactly what a true Luna would say. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the moon rise over the pack territory. Tomorrow would bring the challenge that would determine the rest of their lives, but tonight, they had this moment of peace. "Kane," Sera said eventually, "whatever happens tomorrow, I need you to know that these past few days have been the best of my life. Finding my wolf, discovering who I really am, realizing that you're my mate. Even if I lose the challenge, none of that changes." Kane set down his tea, and turned to face her fully. "You're not going to lose. But if I do, you won't." His conviction was absolute. "Because you're not just fighting for yourself tomorrow, Sera. You're fighting for every pack member who's ever felt like an outcast, every person who's been told they're not good enough, every wolf who needs to believe that strength comes from within." Kane's eyes blazed with gold flecks. "Victoria is fighting for status and recognition. You're fighting for justice and belonging. There's no contest." Sera felt tears prick her eyes, but they were tears of gratitude rather than fear. Whatever tomorrow brought, she would face it with Kane's faith to sustain her and her pack's future to fight for. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too, Luna," Kane replied and kissed her forehead. "Now get some rest. Tomorrow you claim your throne." As Kane left her to sleep, Sera stood at the window looking out over the pack territory that would soon be hers to protect. Somewhere out there, Victoria Sterling was probably strategizing and training, but Sera felt a deep calm settling over her. She was Lunaborn. She was Kane's mate. She was exactly where she belonged. Tomorrow she would prove it to everyone. Chapter 5. Dawn broke gray and cold over the Crescent Moon pack territory, but by sunset, the challenge circle buzzed with energy. Pack members had been arriving all afternoon, some traveling from neighboring territories to witness the rare Luna's Right challenge. The circular arena had been marked with ancient symbols, and 3 elderly wolves, the pack's council of elders, sat on elevated seats that overlooked the sacred ground. Sera stood at the eastern edge of the circle, wearing simple black pants and a silver tank top that wouldn't restrict her movement. Her hair was braided back, the new silver, streaks catching the dying light like threads of moonlight. Kane waited nearby, his presence steady and reassuring through their mate bond. Across the circle, Victoria Sterling looked every inch the warrior princess. Her auburn hair flowed loose over her shoulders, and she wore form-fitting leather that emphasized her athletic build. Her supporters clustered behind her, mostly younger pack members who admired her traditional strength and status. Elder Catherine Moonwhisper, the oldest living pack member at 93, rose from her seat. Her voice carried clearly across the assembled crowd despite her frail appearance. "We gather tonight to witness Luna's Right, invoked by Victoria Sterling of Beta Bloodline against Sera Blackwood of Luna Bloodline." Catherine's pale eyes swept both challengers. 3 trials await: strategy, strength, and spirit. Failure in any trial means forfeiture of claim. Do both challengers understand and accept these terms? "I accept," Victoria said, her voice strong and confident. "I accept," Sera replied, feeling surprisingly calm. "Then we begin with strategy." Catherine gestured to the other 2 elders, who began chanting in the old tongue. Magic shimmered in the air between them, and suddenly both challengers found themselves standing in what appeared to be a war room. Maps covered every surface, showing pack territories, human settlements, and marked danger zones. The scent of smoke and blood hung in the air, and through phantom windows, they could see fires burning in the distance. The scenario, Catherine's voice echoed around them, is as follows. "A rogue army of 50 wolves has invaded our territory during the full moon when our pack's defenses are strongest. They've taken hostages, including pack pups, and barricaded themselves in the old mining complex 3 miles north. Our scouts report they have a mage with them who has warded the entrances against direct assault." Elder Marcus Ironwood, a grizzled former beta, stepped forward. "You have 40 pack warriors at your disposal, plus your alpha. The human authorities have been alerted and will arrive within 6 hours. What are your orders, and how do you justify them?" Victoria stepped forward immediately, her confidence unwavering. "This is simple. We gather our strongest fighters and assault from 3 directions simultaneously. The wards will fall under coordinated attack, and we can overwhelm them through superior numbers and coordination." "And the hostages?" Elder Catherine prompted. "Acceptable losses if it means saving the pack," Victoria replied without hesitation. "A Luna must be willing to make hard choices." Sera felt ice in her veins at Victoria's callous dismissal of innocent lives, but she forced herself to study the scenario carefully. Something about it felt familiar, and after a moment, she realized why. She'd read about a similar historical incident in Kane's library. I disagree, Sera said, stepping forward. This isn't a random rogue attack. It's too well-coordinated, too strategic. Someone with intimate knowledge of our defenses helped plan this. She moved to the largest map, pointing to key locations. The mining complex has 3 entrances, but there's a 4th that was sealed decades ago after a cave-in. If we can reopen it quietly, a small team could infiltrate while the main force creates a distraction here. That would divide our forces, Victoria objected. It's tactically unsound. Not if the distraction team isn't planning to actually fight, Sera countered. Elder Catherine, you mentioned the rogues have a mage. Magic requires concentration and line of sight for most ward spells. If we can force the mage to focus on maintaining defenses against an apparent full assault from the main entrance, a smaller team could slip in the back and neutralize both the mage and the threat to the hostages. Elder Marcus leaned forward with interest. And if your infiltration team is discovered before they can complete their mission? Then we adapt. But the goal isn't to win a glorious battle, it's to protect our people and bring everyone home alive. Sera's voice carried quiet conviction. Aluna's first duty is to her pack, including the innocent lives that can't protect themselves. The elders exchanged meaningful looks. Elder Catherine waved her hand, and the war room scenario dissolved back into the challenge circle. The strategy phase tests a potential Luna's ability to think beyond obvious solutions and prioritize pack welfare over personal glory, Catherine announced. Victoria Sterling showed courage and decisiveness, but was willing to sacrifice innocence for victory. Sera Blackwood demonstrated strategic thinking, adaptability, and commitment to protecting all pack members. Victoria's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. She's overthinking a simple problem. Leadership isn't simple, child, Elder Marcus said gently. Victoria Sterling, you have shown the qualities of an excellent beta, decisive, brave, willing to make hard choices. But leadership requires different strengths. The strategy phase goes to Sera Blackwood, Catherine declared. A cheer went up from part of the crowd, though Victoria's supporters remained notably quiet. Sera felt relief flood through her, but the challenge was far from over. We move immediately to the strength phase, Catherine announced. Combat, one-on-one, shifted forms. Victory by submission or incapacitation. Chapter 6. The circle cleared as pack members stepped back to give the combatants room. Victoria was already beginning her shift, bones popping and reforming as her russet wolf emerged. She was smaller than Sera's silver wolf but built for speed and agility, with scars along her flanks that spoke of extensive battle experience. Sera closed her eyes and called to her wolf. The shift came easier now, like slipping into a second skin. When she opened her eyes, she stood on 4 legs as her magnificent silver wolf, power radiating from her like heat. Victoria wasted no time. She launched herself forward with lightning speed, aiming for Sera's throat in a classic kill strike. But Sera's Luna instincts kicked in, and she sidestepped with fluid grace, catching Victoria's scruff in her powerful jaws. Submit, Sera projected through Luna dominance. Victoria's response was to twist violently and rake her claws across Sera's shoulder, drawing first blood. The attack broke Sera's hold, and Victoria spun away, circling for another assault. She's faster than you, Kane's voice whispered through their mate bond. But you're stronger. Don't let her control the pace. Victoria came in low this time, going for Sera's legs to bring her down. But instead of dodging, Sera met the attack head-on, using her superior weight to drive Victoria backward. They rolled across the circle floor, snapping and clawing, neither able to gain decisive advantage. The crowd cheered and gasped as the 2 wolves broke apart and circled each other. Victoria was breathing hard, but her eyes blazed with determination. She'd landed several hits, while Sera's Luna durability had absorbed most of the damage. Getting tired, little Luna? Victoria taunted in the mental voice wolves used in shifted form. Just getting started, Sera replied, and this time, she went on the offensive. Instead of relying purely on physical strength, Sera began channeling her Luna abilities through her attacks. Each swipe of her claws carried a charge of dominance magic. Every bite attempt was backed by the psychic weight of Luna authority. Victoria quickly realized she was outmatched in raw power and switched tactics. She began using her speed advantage to dart in, land quick hits, and retreat before Sera could retaliate. It was effective, death by 1,000 cuts. But Sera had been watching Victoria's pattern, learning her rhythms. When Victoria came in for another hit-and-run attack, Sera was ready. Instead of trying to match Victoria's speed, Sera dropped to the ground as if Victoria's latest strike had seriously injured her. Victoria, seeing apparent victory, moved in for a finishing blow to the throat. At the last second, Sera rolled and caught Victoria's front leg in her jaws. The crunch of bone was audible across the circle. Victoria howled in pain and fury, but her mobility was now severely compromised. She could barely stand on 3 legs, let alone continue fighting effectively. "Yield," Sera commanded through Luna voice, backing away to give Victoria space. "Never." Victoria snarled, trying to lunge forward on her injured leg. She collapsed immediately, pain overwhelming her determination. The fight was effectively over. Victoria couldn't continue, but her pride wouldn't let her submit. Sera made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. Instead of pressing her advantage or waiting for the elders to declare victory, she approached the injured Victoria and gently placed her muzzle against the other wolf's neck in a gesture of comfort rather than dominance. "You fought with honor," Sera projected. "Your strength serves the pack well, even if you're not meant to be Luna. I would be honored to have you as my beta." Victoria's eyes widened with shock. In all her planning for this challenge, she had never considered that defeat might lead to elevation rather than exile. You would trust me?" Victoria asked hesitantly. "A wise Luna surrounds herself with the strongest wolves. Your skills are exactly what our pack needs, just in a different role than you expected." Victoria looked into Sera's silver eyes and saw genuine respect rather than pity or condescension. Slowly, she tilted her head to expose her throat in formal submission. "I yield to Luna Sera Blackwood," Victoria announced, shifting back to human form. "And I accept the honor of serving as her beta, if she'll have me." The crowd erupted in surprised cheers. It was unprecedented for a Luna challenge to end with the challenger being offered a position of honor. But it demonstrated something crucial about Sera's leadership philosophy. She saw potential allies rather than permanent enemies. Elder Catherine was smiling as she spoke. The strength phase tests not just combat ability, but judgment and victory. Sera Blackwood has shown that true strength includes mercy and wisdom. Victoria Sterling has shown that true honor includes graceful acceptance of defeat and willingness to serve a greater purpose. "The strength phase goes to Sera Blackwood," Elder Marcus declared. "But we also recognize Victoria Sterling as beta-elect, pending Luna Sera's official confirmation." Kane's pride flooded through their mate bond so powerfully that Sera nearly staggered. 2 phases down, 1 to go. But as the elders began preparations for the final trial, Sera felt a chill of premonition. The spirit phase would test her ultimate loyalty to the pack, and she had a feeling it was going to ask her to choose between everything she'd ever wanted and everything she was born to protect. Chapter 7. The circle fell silent as the 3 elders joined hands and began the most complex magical working any pack member had ever witnessed. Ancient power swirled around them, and reality itself seemed to bend and shift. When the magic settled, Sera found herself standing alone in what appeared to be the pack house, but something was wrong. The walls flickered between solid and transparent, and the air hummed with otherworldly energy. This wasn't the real pack house. It was a construct built from magic and possibility. "Welcome to the spirit trial," Elder Catherine's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "Here, you will face the ultimate test of lunaship. Remember, everything you experience is real, even if it exists only in this space. Your choices will have lasting consequences." The first scenario materialized around her like a waking nightmare. Sera stood in the pack's medical wing, where bodies lay on every available surface. Pack members moaned in pain, their skin burning with fever and strange markings that looked almost like brands. Elena Rosewood rushed between patients, but her face showed despair rather than hope. Luna! Elena called, spotting Sera. Thank the goddess you're here. It's a magical plague, the same dark magic signature we found on Marcus Thorne's spells. He must have planted a delayed curse before you stripped his power. How many are affected? Sera asked, moving to help tend the injured. 43 so far, including most of our warriors. It's spreading fast, and I can't find a cure. Elena's voice cracked with exhaustion. But there might be a way to stop it. She led Sera to a private room where a complex magical apparatus had been set up. At its center lay a binding circle that looked disturbingly familiar. The plague is tied to your Luna bloodline, Elena explained. Marcus designed it to feed on Luna power and spread throughout any pack bonded to a Luna wolf. The only way to break it is to sever your connection to the pack permanently. Sera's blood went cold. You mean give up being Luna? More than that. You'd have to undergo a ritual that would strip away your wolf entirely. You'd become fully human, with no ability to shift, no mate bond, no connection to pack magic. Elena's eyes filled with tears. You'd save everyone, but you'd lose everything that makes you who you are. Through the medical wing's windows, Sera could see more pack members collapsing in the courtyard. The plague was accelerating. How long do I have to decide? Minutes, maybe less. Every moment you remain connected to the pack, the curse grows stronger. Sera closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 60-plus lives pressing down on her shoulders. Through the mate bond, she could sense Kane somewhere in the pack house, growing weaker as the curse affected him too. This was the ultimate test of lunaship. Was she willing to sacrifice everything, including her own happiness and identity, to save her people? Do it, she whispered. Sera, no. Kane's voice came from the doorway. He stumbled into the room, his skin marked with the same burning brands as the others. There has to be another way. There isn't, Sera said, though her heart was breaking. I won't let you all die because of me. She stepped into the binding circle before Kane could stop her. Elena began chanting in the old tongue, and power built around them like a rising storm. But as the ritual reached its climax, Sera felt something she hadn't expected, absolute certainty that this was wrong. A true Luna would find another way. Stop, she commanded, her Luna voice carrying enough power to shatter Elena's concentration. The healer looked at her in shock. Sera, if you don't complete the ritual, then I'll find a different solution. Sera stepped out of the circle, her mind racing. Elena, you said the plague feeds on Luna power. What if instead of cutting off that power, I gave it exactly what it wanted? I don't understand. Magical curses are like parasites. They take only what they need to survive and grow. But what happens if you give a parasite more than it can handle? Sera was already moving, her hands glowing with silver light. Instead of starving the curse, I'm going to overfeed it. She placed her hands on Kane's marked skin and poured her Luna power into the curse, not fighting it, but giving it so much energy that it couldn't process it all. The dark marks began writhing, then smoking, then simply dissolved as the curse burned itself out from overfeeding. Kane's fever broke immediately, and his breathing eased. Sera, you're brilliant. Save the praise for after we cure everyone else, Sera replied, but she was smiling. The scenario dissolved around them, and Sera found herself back in the challenge circle. But before she could fully process what had happened, the second scenario began. This time, she stood on a battlefield where Kane faced another Alpha in single combat. The challenger was massive, scarred, and clearly experienced in lethal fights. Kane was holding his own, but barely. Luna Sera, came a familiar voice. She turned to see Beta Marcus approaching with a squad of warriors. Alpha Kane insisted on handling this challenge alone, but it's clear he's outmatched. If we intervene now, we can save his life. But it would dishonor him and weaken his position with the pack, Sera realized.
Yes.
The choice is yours. Save your mate's life, but damage his leadership, or honor his choice and risk losing him forever. Sera watched Kane take a vicious hit that sent him stumbling. Every instinct screamed at her to intervene, to use her Luna power to turn the tide. The mate bond between them was agony as she felt his pain and exhaustion. But she also felt his determination, his pride, his absolute refusal to be seen as weak by his pack. "We don't interfere," she said firmly. "But we stay ready. If Kane falls, I'll handle his opponent myself." Luna, that could mean his death. And interfering could mean the end of his effectiveness as Alpha. A good Luna supports her Alpha's choices, even when they're difficult to watch. Kane managed to rally, using the challenger's overconfidence against him to land a decisive blow. As his opponent yielded, Kane's eyes found Sera's across the battlefield, and she saw his gratitude and pride in her restraint. The second scenario faded, replaced by the third and final test. Sera stood in a burning pack house. Smoke filled the air, and she could hear screams from multiple directions. To her left, she could sense Kane trapped under debris, his life force fading. To her right, she could hear children crying in what sounded like the pack's nursery. She had the power to save one or the other, but not both. Time was running out. The choice that would define her as Luna, her mate, or her pack's future. Sera closed her eyes, feeling tears stream down her face. Then she turned toward the children's cries and ran. She burst into the nursery to find 6 pups huddled in a corner as flames closed in around them. Her Luna power flowed out like a protective shield, holding back the fire while she gathered the children. Through the mate bond, she felt Kane's life force flickering and fading. The pain was indescribable, like having her heart torn from her chest. But she held the children close and poured her strength into keeping them safe until help could arrive. When rescue came, Kane was gone. The mate bond went silent, leaving an emptiness in Sera's soul that felt like death itself. But 6 young lives had been saved, the pack's future secured. The final scenario dissolved, and Sera found herself back in the challenge circle, tears still streaming down her face. The phantom pain of losing Kane felt utterly real, even though he stood watching from the sidelines, very much alive and looking at her with awe. Elder Catherine rose from her seat, her ancient face creased with approval. The spirit phase tests whether a potential Luna will choose the pack over personal desire, even in the face of ultimate loss. Sera Blackwood has demonstrated that she understands the sacred duty of Lunaship to protect the future of the pack above all else, even at the cost of her own happiness. The Elder's voice carried across the silent gathering. In 3 trials, she has shown strategic wisdom, honorable strength, and selfless spirit. The Council unanimously declares Sera Blackwood to be the rightful Luna of the Crescent Moon Pack. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Sera barely heard them. Kane was already moving toward her, his arms opening to catch her as she collapsed from emotional exhaustion. "I chose them," she sobbed against his chest. "In the trial, I chose the children over you, and I felt you die." "And that's exactly why you're the perfect Luna," Kane whispered fiercely. "A leader who will sacrifice everything for her people is exactly what this pack needs." As the celebration continued around them, Sera looked up at the wolves who were now truly her pack. Victoria Sterling approached, moving carefully on her bandaged leg. "Luna," Victoria said formally, then broke into a genuine smile. "I couldn't be happier to serve under someone worthy of the title. The pack is in good hands." Elder Catherine appeared beside them, carrying an ancient silver circlet set with moonstones. "The Luna crown of the Crescent Moon Pack," she said solemnly. "It has waited 12 years for its rightful owner." As Kane placed the crown on Sera's head, she felt a final transformation settle over her, not of power or position, but of belonging. She was home, surrounded by her pack, bonded to her mate, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. From Outcast to Luna in less than a week. But as she looked around at the faces of her people, Sera knew the hardest part wasn't becoming Luna. It was being worthy of their trust every single day from now on. Chapter 8. The Luna crown felt heavier at dawn than it had during the ceremony. Sera stood at the window of her new quarters, the Luna suite adjacent to Kane's Alpha chambers, watching the pack begin their daily routines. In the courtyard below, she could see pack members glancing up at her window, some with curiosity, others with lingering skepticism. Being declared Luna was one thing. Earning it was another. Second thoughts. Kane asked from behind her, his arms sliding around her waist. Third and fourth thoughts, Sera admitted, leaning back against his solid warmth. Yesterday, I was eating kitchen scraps. Today I'm responsible for 63 lives. 64. Kane corrected gently. You're responsible for yourself too. A sharp knock interrupted their moment. Luna, Alpha, came Victoria's voice through the door. The council is ready for you. Sera's first official act as Luna would be establishing her inner circle and addressing the pack's immediate needs. Victoria had already proven herself invaluable, despite her injured leg forcing her to use crutches. The former rival had thrown herself into her new role as Beta with impressive dedication. The council chamber had been rearranged since Sera's last visit. Instead of Kane sitting alone at the head of the table, 2 chairs now occupied the position, equal in height and importance. It was a small change with enormous symbolic weight. Good morning, Luna, Elder Catherine said warmly as they entered. The other council members, Beta Marcus, Elder Marcus Ironwood, Healer Elena, and now Victoria, rose respectfully. Please sit, Sera said, taking her place beside Kane. We have a lot to discuss. The first order of business was reorganizing pack duties to accommodate Victoria's new role as Beta-elect. Marcus Winters had served admirably as Kane's second, but at 57, he was ready to step back from the most demanding responsibilities. I propose Marcus remain as senior Beta, handling logistics and long-term planning, Sera said, consulting the notes she'd made the night before. Victoria will take on active leadership duties, training, security, and field operations. A wise division of responsibilities, Marcus agreed. I've been hoping to spend more time with my grandpups anyway. Victoria straightened despite her injury. Luna, I won't let you down. I know I challenged you, but... Victoria, Sera interrupted gently. You challenged me because you care about this pack's strength and future. That's exactly the quality I need in a Beta. Your opposition made me stronger, and your support will make the pack stronger. The grateful look on Victoria's face told Sera she'd made the right choice. Sometimes former enemies made the most loyal allies because they understood the cost of their conversion. The next issue was more complex, integrating Sera's enhanced Luna abilities into the pack's daily operations. We've never had a Luna with your range of powers, Elena explained. The healing alone could revolutionize our medical care, but we need to understand the limitations. I'm still learning them myself, Sera admitted. Yesterday, I healed Victoria's broken leg in minutes, but it left me drained for hours. The power is there, but using it efficiently requires practice. Kane leaned forward. We also need to consider security implications. Word will spread about Sera's abilities, and that could attract unwanted attention from other packs or supernatural groups. Already happening, Victoria reported grimly. I've received 3 inquiries from neighboring Alphas asking about the new Luna's demonstration. 2 sounded genuinely curious, but the third? Which pack? Kane's voice carried dangerous undertones. Shadowcrest. Alpha Daemon requests a formal introduction to Luna Sera. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Sera didn't recognize the name, but everyone else's reactions told her everything she needed to know. Over my dead body, Kane growled. Who is Alpha Daemon? Sera asked. Elder Catherine's ancient face creased with worry. Daemon Blackthorn leads the largest pack in the region, over 200 wolves. He's ambitious. And he has a particular interest in powerful females. He's collected 3 Lunas over the past decade, Victoria added with distaste. All from smaller packs that couldn't resist his pressure. Technically, they're his honored consorts, but everyone knows they're prisoners. Sera felt ice forming in her veins. He steals Lunas? Not steals, coerces, Elena corrected. He offers protection to struggling packs in exchange for their strongest females. The packs survive, but their Lunas disappear into his compound. And no one stops him? Kane's jaw was tight with old anger. The Council of Alphas has declared it internal pack business as long as no formal challenges are issued. Daemon is careful to stay within the letter of supernatural law while violating its spirit. Sera stood, power crackling around her like electricity. Well, he can forget about adding me to his collection. It's not that simple, Elder Marcus warned. Refusing his invitation could be seen as an insult. He has grounds to demand satisfaction through formal combat. Then he'll get it, Sera said firmly. But not on his terms. Kane's pride flooded through their mate bond, but also deep concern. Sera, Damon has been Alpha for 20 years. He's never lost a challenge. He's never faced a Luna like me either. Victoria cleared her throat. Actually, Luna, there might be a diplomatic solution. Pack law requires a formal introduction period before any negotiations. If we host him here for the traditional 3 days, we can demonstrate Pack's strength and unity. It might discourage him from pursuing this. Or it might give him a closer look at our defenses, Kane countered. Either way, we'll be ready, Sera decided. Send word that Luna Sera Blackwood formally accepts Alpha Damon's request for introduction, to be conducted according to traditional protocols. As the council dispersed to handle their various responsibilities, Kane caught Sera's arm. Are you sure about this? Damon is dangerous, and his pack outnumbers us 3-1. I'm sure that running away isn't an option, Sera replied. If he's been collecting Lunas, then someone needs to stop him. It might as well be me. Kane studied her face, seeing the determination that had carried her through the Luna trials. Then we'll face it together. The rest of the day was spent preparing for Damon's visit while handling the normal business of pack leadership. Sera was amazed at how much went into keeping 60-plus wolves fed, housed, and organized. Supply chains, territory patrols, conflict resolution between pack members, coordination with human authorities. The list was endless. But what struck her most was how naturally she fell into the rhythm of leadership. When 2 juvenile wolves brought her a boundary dispute, she found herself asking the right questions to uncover the real issue, territorial insecurity, rather than the surface problem, who owned which hunting spot. When the pack's accountant presented budget concerns, her instincts immediately identified the core inefficiencies. You're taking to this like you were born for it, Victoria observed during a brief break. Maybe I was, Sera replied, then paused thoughtfully. Actually, I think I've been preparing for it my whole life, without realizing it. All those years watching from the outside, seeing how things could be done better, I was unconsciously learning. The universe has a sense of humor, Victoria said with a wry smile. It made you suffer as an outcast so you'd understand what the pack needed from its Luna. That evening, as Sera and Kane shared a quiet dinner in their private quarters, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction settling into her bones. The crown might be heavy, but it fit perfectly. Kane, she said suddenly, I want to ask you something, and I need complete honesty. Always. Do you think I'm moving too fast? Taking on Damon, reorganizing the pack structure, making major decisions after less than a week as Luna? Kane set down his fork and looked at her seriously. I think you're doing exactly what a true Luna does, protecting her pack from threats and positioning them for success. The timing isn't ideal, but leadership rarely offers perfect circumstances. And if I'm wrong about being able to handle Damon, then we'll face the consequences together, Kane said simply. But Sera, I've seen you strip a dark mage of his power, win a 3-phase challenge, and unite former enemies into loyal allies. If anyone can handle an arrogant alpha with a collection fetish, it's you. His faith in her was both humbling and empowering. Whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone. As if summoned by her thoughts, Victoria's voice came through the door. Luna, Alpha. Urgent message from our scouts. They opened the door to find Victoria holding a formal scroll sealed with black wax. Damon's response, she explained. He's not coming for a diplomatic visit. Sera broke the seal and read the elegant script aloud. To Luna Sera Blackwood of Crescent Moon Pack. Your reputation for power and beauty has reached my ears. I hereby invoke Alpha's right of courtship and will arrive with my entourage in 3 days to assess your suitability as my 4th Luna. Prepare appropriate hospitality. Alpha Damon Blackthorn, Shadowcrest Pack. The scroll crumpled in Sera's tightening fist. Courtship? He thinks he can just show up and evaluate me like livestock. It's a legal claim under old pack law, Victoria said grimly. And refusing it without cause could give him grounds for a territorial challenge. Kane was vibrating with barely controlled fury. I'll kill him before I let him touch her. No, Sera said firmly. This is my fight. But Victoria's right. We need to handle this legally and carefully. She looked at both of them with grim determination. If Damon wants to court the Luna of Crescent Moon Pack, he's going to learn exactly what kind of wolf he's dealing with. The game had changed. This wasn't just about proving her worth to her own pack anymore. It was about protecting every Luna who had fallen victim to Damon's collection and ensuring no others would follow. 3 days to prepare for the most dangerous challenge of her young Luna career. Chapter 9. Alpha Damon Blackthorn arrived exactly on schedule with a motorcade that looked more like an invasion force than a diplomatic visit. Sera watched from the pack house balcony as 15 black SUVs wound up the mountain road toward their territory, each one bristling with a suppressed tension of predators barely held in check. 43 wolves, Victoria reported, lowering her binoculars. All male, all warriors. He's not taking any chances. Neither are we, Sera replied, adjusting the silver circlet that marked her Luna's status. She dressed for war in a flowing black dress that looked elegant but wouldn't restrict movement, with silver jewelry that doubled as focusing crystals for her power. Remember the plan. Kane stood beside her, magnificent in his formal alpha attire. The mate bond between them hummed with shared determination and barely controlled protective fury. 3 days, he murmured. We just need to survive 3 days of his courtship, without giving him legal grounds for challenge. He won't get the chance, Sera said quietly. I have a different plan. The lead SUV stopped in front of the pack house, and the wolf who emerged made Sera's skin crawl instantly. Alpha Damon was tall and powerfully built, with silver-streaked black hair and eyes like chips of blue ice. He moved with the fluid confidence of someone accustomed to taking whatever he wanted, and when his gaze found Sera on the balcony, his smile was predatory. Luna Sera, he called up, his voice carrying easily across the distance. Even more beautiful than reported. I'm already impressed. The casual assumption of ownership in his tone made Sera's wolf snarl, but she kept her expression neutral. Alpha Damon. Welcome to Crescent Moon territory. I trust your journey was pleasant. It was worth it, Damon replied, his eyes never leaving her. I've come a long way to meet the Luna, who took down Marcus Thorne. Such power deserves proper appreciation. Kane stepped forward, his presence a clear warning. Alpha Damon, welcome. I'm Kane Ashworth, Alpha of Crescent Moon Pack. Damon's acknowledgement of Kane was barely polite, his attention immediately returning to Sera. Alpha Kane. I look forward to discussing terms with you later. But first, I'd very much like to speak with Luna Sera privately. I'm afraid pack protocols require the presence of witnesses during formal courtship discussions, Sera replied smoothly. I'm sure you understand the importance of propriety. Something flickered in Damon's eyes, annoyance, perhaps, or calculation. Of course. Shall we proceed to somewhere more comfortable for our negotiations? As they moved to the formal reception hall, Sera caught glimpses of Damon's warriors positioning themselves strategically around the pack grounds. They were subtle about it, but the message was clear. Shadowcrest Pack was ready to take what they wanted by force if necessary. The reception hall had been prepared according to traditional protocols, with formal seating arrangements that placed Sera and Kane on elevated chairs while Damon occupied the place of honor for visiting dignitaries. Victoria and the pack elders flanked them, creating a careful balance of respect and strength. Now then, Damon said once everyone was settled, let's discuss why I'm here. Luna Sera, your recent emergence has caused quite a stir in supernatural circles. A Luna who can strip dark mages of their power, who commands such raw authority. Such talents are rare and precious. I'm flattered by your interest, Sera replied carefully, but I'm already mated and bonded to Alpha Kane. Damon waved dismissively. Mate bonds can be severed with the proper rituals. It's painful, certainly, but hardly insurmountable for a Luna of your caliber. He leaned forward, his intensity making the air in the room thick with tension. I can offer you something Alpha Kane never could, a pack worthy of your abilities. Crescent Moon Pack suits me perfectly, Sera said, her Luna voice carrying harmonics that made several of Damon's warriors shift uncomfortably. 63 wolves? Damon laughed. Luna Sera, I command over 200. My territory spans 3 states. I can give you power, influence, and resources beyond anything this quaint little pack can provide. Kane's growl was barely audible, but Damon heard it and smiled with cold satisfaction. Of course, Damon continued, there would need to be a period of adjustment. My other Lunas might be initially resistant to sharing their alpha's attention, but I'm confident you could establish the proper hierarchy among them. The casual mention of his other captive Lunas made Sera's power flare involuntarily. Frost appeared on the windows, and the temperature in the room dropped noticeably. How many Lunas are currently in your care? Sera asked, her voice deceptively mild. 3, soon to be 4. Luna Catherine of the Mountain View Pack joined me 2 years ago after her pack faced some unfortunate financial difficulties. Luna Rebecca from Riverside came to me after raiders threatened her people. I was happy to provide protection. And Luna Michelle, well, let's just say she saw the wisdom in voluntary submission rather than forcing me to claim her pack by conquest. Each name hit Sera like a physical blow. These weren't willing partners. They were hostages, traded away by desperate alphas or coerced by threats to their packs. I see, Sera said quietly. And what makes you think I would be interested in such an arrangement? Damon's smile was all teeth. Because, my dear Luna, you're intelligent enough to recognize superior strength when you see it. Your little pack is impressive for its size, but it's hardly a major power. I'm offering you the chance to become part of something greater. And if I refuse? The temperature in the room seemed to drop further, but this time it wasn't from Sera's power. Damon's pleasant facade cracked slightly, revealing the predator underneath. Well, that would be disappointing. I've invested considerable time and resources in coming here. Disappointing me tends to have consequences for small packs who can't protect themselves. Kane started to rise, but Sera placed a gentle hand on his arm. Through their mate bond, she projected calm confidence mixed with deadly intent. Alpha Damon, she said, standing gracefully, I appreciate your generous offer. However, I'm afraid I must decline. I'm quite happy with my current situation. Are you? Damon also stood. His impressive height meant to intimidate. Luna Sera, perhaps you don't fully understand your position here. I've done my research on Crescent Moon Pack. Your finances are strained. Your warrior numbers are low. Your territory, while beautiful, lacks significant resources. His voice grew colder. I'm offering you protection from threats you may not even realize exist yet. What kind of threats? Victoria asked sharply. Damon's smile returned, but it was razor-sharp now. Oh, all sorts. Rogue attacks, territorial disputes, economic pressures. Small packs face so many challenges these days. It would be tragic if something happened to such a charming little community. The threat was barely veiled now, and Sera felt her wolf rising to meet it. Around the room, her pack members tensed, recognizing the shift from diplomacy to intimidation. Alpha Damon, Sera said, her Luna voice carrying enough power to make the crystal chandelier chime softly. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. You seem to think I'm a prize to be won or a possession to be collected. Allow me to clarify something. She stepped down from the elevated platform, moving toward Damon with fluid grace that barely concealed the predator underneath. Power radiated from her like heat waves, and her eyes began to glow with silver light. I am Luna Sera Blackwood of Crescent Moon Pack. I am mated to Alpha Kane Ashworth, bonded by choice and sealed by destiny. I am not available for collection, coercion, or conquest. Her voice grew stronger with each word, harmonics making the very air vibrate. Furthermore, any threats against my pack will be met with the full force of Luna justice. Damon's eyes widened as he truly sensed her power for the first time. At close range, the full weight of her Luna presence was overwhelming, ancient authority mixed with raw magical strength and absolute conviction. You're stronger than reported, he said, taking an involuntary step back. Much stronger, Sera confirmed. And I'm rapidly losing patience with guests who threaten my family. For a moment, genuine uncertainty flickered across Damon's face. He'd built his reputation on intimidating smaller packs, but he'd never encountered a Luna willing and able to fight back with such overwhelming force. Then his expression hardened with stubborn pride and wounded ego. "Very well," he said formally. "If Luna Sera refuses my generous courtship offer, then I invoke the right of challenge. Single combat between alphas. Winner takes all." Kane snarled and started forward, but Sera moved faster, placing herself between the two males. "No," she said firmly. "You want to challenge someone for the right to claim me? Then challenge me directly." Damon blinked in surprise. "Luna challenges are completely legal under pack law when a Luna status is directly threatened," Elder Catherine interrupted from her seat. The ancient wolf's eyes gleamed with something that might have been anticipation. "Though it's been over a century since one was invoked." "Sera, no," Kane said urgently through their mate bond. "He's a seasoned alpha warrior." "Who thinks Lunas are possessions to be traded?" Sera replied aloud, not caring that everyone could hear their private conversation. "I'm going to teach him otherwise." Damon was staring at her with a mixture of shock and growing anger. "You can't be serious. I've been Alpha for 20 years. And I've been Luna for 3 days, Sera interrupted. "But I'm not challenging your experience, Damon. I'm challenging your right to treat women like collectibles." The formal words came to her as if her Luna bloodline carried the memory of ancient laws. "I, Luna Sera Blackwood, challenge Alpha Damon Blackthorn for the crime of Luna trafficking and the threat of territorial aggression. Combat to the death or submission, to be held at dawn tomorrow." The silence that followed was absolute. Even Damon's warriors looked stunned by the formal challenge. "This is unprecedented," Damon said slowly. "So am I," Sera replied with a smile that held no warmth whatsoever. "Will you accept, or will you withdraw your courtship claim and leave my territory?" Damon's face flushed with anger and wounded pride. He'd come here expecting to intimidate another small-pack Luna into submission. Instead, he'd been publicly challenged by a wolf who showed no fear of his reputation or resources. "I accept," he said through gritted teeth. "And when I win, Luna Sera, you'll learn what happens to wolves who forget their place." "When I win," Sera corrected, 3 Lunas will go free, and you'll never threaten another pack again." As Damon and his entourage were escorted to guest quarters for the night, Sera felt a mix of terror and anticipation coursing through her veins. Tomorrow, she would face her greatest test yet. But tonight, she had preparations to make. Chapter 10. The challenge ground had been prepared according to ancient laws, marked with symbols that would contain the combat and ensure neither fighter could flee until victory was decided. Dawn mist hung low over the clearing as pack members and Damon's warriors formed a wide circle around the sacred space. Sera stood at the eastern edge, wearing simple black pants and a silver tank top that wouldn't restrict her movement. The Luna crown had been removed. Challenges were fought without formal regalia, but power still radiated from her like visible heat. She'd spent the night in meditation, drawing on every lesson Kane had taught her and every instinct her Luna bloodline provided. Across the circle, Damon loomed in his human form, muscles rippling beneath his skin. At 6'4" and built like a linebacker, he had significant advantages in reach and raw physical strength. His cold blue eyes held complete confidence. He'd never lost a challenge, and he didn't intend to start with an upstart Luna barely a week into her position. "Last chance to reconsider," Damon called across the circle. "Yield now, and I'll be generous in victory." "The only thing you'll be is defeated," Sera replied, her Luna voice carrying clearly to every spectator. Elder Catherine stepped forward, her ancient voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "The challenge is legal and binding. Victory through death, submission, or inability to continue. Combat begins at first light." The sky was already brightening, painting the eastern horizon in shades of gold and pink. Sera felt the mate bond with Kane like an anchor, his love and faith flowing through their connection. Victoria stood with the pack elders, her face grim but confident. Even Marcus Winters had positioned himself where she could see his encouraging nod. Sera, Kane's voice came through their bond. Remember what I taught you. Don't try to match his strength. Use your speed and power. And whatever happens, I love you. I love you too, she replied. But I'm not losing today. The first ray of sunlight crested the mountains, and Elder Catherine's voice rang out. Begin. Both fighters began their shifts immediately. Damon's transformation was impressive, bones cracking and reforming as his massive black wolf emerged, easily weighing over 200 pounds with fangs that gleamed like ivory daggers. His pack had bred for size and aggression for generations. But when Sera's silver wolf materialized, a hush fell over the crowd. Her Luna form was magnificent, nearly as large as Damon's but built for speed and power, her coat shimmering like liquid moonlight. More importantly, she radiated an authority that made even Damon's experienced warriors step back unconsciously. You're beautiful, Damon's mental voice carried across the pack communication frequency. It's almost a shame to break you. The only thing breaking today will be your collection habit, Sera replied with cold fury. Damon attacked first, using his size advantage to try for an immediate takedown. His massive form hurtled across the circle with impressive speed, jaws aimed for Sera's throat. But Sera had learned from her fight with Victoria. Instead of meeting brute force with brute force, she sidestepped at the last second and raked her claws across Damon's ribs as he passed. First blood went to the Luna. Lucky hit, Damon snarled, spinning to face her again. Skill, Sera corrected. Something you've obviously forgotten while collecting helpless victims. This time Sera went on the offensive, her Luna speed allowing her to dart in and out of Damon's range while landing precise strikes. She wasn't trying to match his power, she was using her superior agility to wear him down gradually. Damon quickly realized her strategy and changed tactics. Instead of pursuing her, he planted himself in the center of the circle and began projecting alpha dominance in waves. His roar echoed across the mountainside, a sound designed to make lesser wolves submit through sheer intimidation. Kneel, Luna, he commanded, putting the full weight of his alpha presence behind the order. For a moment, Sera felt the pressure. 20 years of successful leadership and conquest carried real psychic weight. But then her own Luna power rose to meet it, and something extraordinary happened. Instead of just resisting Damon's dominance, Sera's power began to unravel it. Her Luna abilities, designed to maintain pack harmony and balance, recognized Damon's authority as corrupt and began systematically dismantling it. What? Damon's mental voice cracked with shock as he felt his alpha presence being stripped away layer by layer.
What are you doing to me?
What I should have done the moment you threatened my pack, Sera replied, pressing her advantage. You're not a true alpha, Damon. You're a predator who's been wearing the title like stolen clothes. She attacked while his concentration was disrupted, her powerful jaws locking around his left front leg. The bone cracked under pressure, and Damon howled in pain and rage. But pain only made him more dangerous. With his good leg, Damon raked his claws across Sera's shoulder, opening deep gashes that immediately began bleeding heavily. Then he managed to break free and put some distance between them. Both wolves circled each other warily now, assessing damage. Sera's shoulder throbbed, but the wound wasn't critical. Damon's leg was badly injured, affecting his mobility, but his size advantage remained significant. You fight well for an inexperienced Luna, Damon admitted grudgingly. But this ends now. Instead of shifting tactics again, Damon did something unexpected. He began to change. His already massive form grew larger, muscles bulging as dark energy swirled around him. His eyes turned from blue to red, and his fangs extended further. Illegal enhancement magic, Victoria's voice cut across the pack frequency, horrified. He's using blood magic to boost his combat abilities. The coward, Kane snarled from the sidelines. Elder Catherine started to step forward to stop the illegal magic, but Sera's voice stopped her. No, Sera projected to everyone present. Let him cheat. I want everyone to see what kind of alpha he really is. Damon's enhanced form was truly terrifying, 8 feet of magically augmented predator with strength that could crush steel. When he attacked this time, his speed was also enhanced, making him nearly impossible to dodge. His massive jaws caught Sera across the back, lifting her off the ground and shaking her like a rag doll before flinging her against the circle's boundary. She hit hard, blood flowing from multiple wounds, and struggled to regain her footing. "Submit," Damon commanded, his voice now carrying magical compulsion as well as alpha dominance. "Submit, and I'll end this quickly." Sera's vision blurred from blood loss and impact trauma, but her Luna's spirit burned brighter than ever. Through the mate bond, she felt Kane's desperate fear and love. Around the circle, she sensed her pack members' horror and growing despair. They were counting on her. 3 captive Lunas were counting on her. Every future victim of Damon's collection obsession was counting on her. "Never," she replied, and began to change herself. But instead of using dark magic like Damon, Sera reached deep into her Luna bloodline and called upon something far older and more powerful. The authority passed down from generation to generation of Luna leaders, the sacred duty to protect the innocent and punish the corrupt. Silver light exploded from her form as she shifted into something beyond her normal wolf shape. When the light faded, she stood as a wolf that seemed carved from moonlight itself, her eyes blazing with ancient power and righteous fury. "You want to see what a real Luna can do?" she asked, her mental voice now carrying harmonics that made reality itself vibrate. "Let me show you." She moved faster than thought, crossing the circle before Damon could react. But instead of attacking his body, she attacked his soul. Her Luna power, fully unleashed for the first time, tore into the corruption that had twisted Damon's nature. Every life he'd stolen, every Luna he'd enslaved, every pack he'd threatened, all of it was laid bare under her purifying light. Damon screamed as 20 years of accumulated darkness was burned away, his enhanced form collapsing back to normal size. But Sera wasn't finished. "You stole Lunas and treated them as possessions," she projected with the authority of divine justice. "You threatened innocent packs for your own gratification. You corrupted the sacred trust of Alpha leadership." With each accusation, more of Damon's stolen power was stripped away. The dark magic that had enhanced his strength fled before her lunar radiance. The Alpha presence he'd wielded like a weapon crumbled under her righteous fury. "I strip you of Alpha status," Sera declared, her voice echoing across dimensions. "I strip you of pack bonds. I strip you of the right to call yourself wolf." The magical backlash was devastating. Damon's wolf form dissolved, leaving him naked and human on the ground, completely mortal for the first time in decades. He looked up at Sera's magnificent lunar form with eyes now filled with very human terror. "Please," he whispered. "I yield. I submit completely." Sera shifted back to her normal wolf form, then to human shape, standing over the broken man who had terrorized so many. "Your submission is noted," she said formally. "But justice requires more than surrender." She turned to address the stunned crowd of spectators. "Let it be known that Damon Blackthorn is no longer Alpha of any pack. His territory and resources are forfeit. His warriors are free to choose new allegiances or form their own packs." Her Luna voice carried absolute authority. "And the 3 Lunas he held captive are to be freed immediately and provided safe passage to wherever they choose to go." Several of Damon's former warriors immediately shifted to human form and knelt in submission. "Luna," their apparent leader said, "we never agreed with his methods. We stayed out of fear and obligation. If you'll have us, we'd be honored to serve a true leader." "Speak with Beta Victoria about integration procedures," Sera replied. "Wolves who genuinely seek redemption will find it here." As for Damon himself, he was loaded into one of his own vehicles under guard, to be delivered to the Council of Alphas for final judgment. Stripped of his supernatural nature, he would face justice in whatever form the Council deemed appropriate. But Sera's work wasn't finished. That afternoon, 3 vehicles arrived carrying the rescued Lunas, Catherine, Rebecca, and Michelle. Each woman bore the psychological scars of captivity, but their relief and gratitude were palpable. Luna Sera, Catherine said, tears streaming down her face. I can't believe we're free. 2 years I've been planning escape attempts. You're safe now, Sera assured her. All of you, take time to heal, and when you're ready, you're welcome to remain here, or we'll help you return to your original packs or find new homes. How can we ever repay you? Rebecca asked. By living freely and never letting anyone convince you that you're anything less than the powerful, valuable women you are, Sera replied firmly. As the sun set on her greatest victory as Luna, Sera stood with Kane on their private balcony, looking out over a pack that had grown from 63 to nearly 100 wolves in a single day. Regrets? Kane asked, his arm around her waist. Only that I didn't challenge him sooner, Sera replied. How many Lunas could we have saved if I'd been stronger, been ready earlier? You can't save everyone retroactively, Kane said gently. But you can make sure it never happens again. And that's exactly what you did today. Through the mate bond, Sera felt his pride, love, and absolute certainty that she was exactly the Luna their pack and the supernatural world needed. From outcast to Luna to protector of the innocent, all in less than 2 weeks. But as she looked down at the rescued Lunas beginning to laugh and interact with her pack members, Sera knew her greatest challenges were still ahead. Being Luna meant more than leading one pack. It meant standing as a guardian for all those who couldn't protect themselves. And she was ready for whatever came next. Chapter 11. 3 weeks after Damon's defeat, the Crescent Moon Pack territory buzzed with controlled chaos. The pack house had been expanded twice to accommodate their new numbers, and construction crews worked around the clock to build additional housing. What had started as a small mountain pack was rapidly becoming something unprecedented, a sanctuary for displaced wolves and a center of supernatural justice. Sera stood in the new communications center, reviewing reports from across the region. Her victory over Damon had sent shockwaves through the supernatural world, and the ripple effects were still being felt. Luna, Victoria called from across the room. Alpha Marcus from Pine Ridge Pack is requesting assistance. They're dealing with a group of rogues who've been recruiting aggressively, apparently telling wolves they can offer what Damon offered, but better. How many rogues? Sera asked, already moving toward the tactical display that covered one wall. Estimated 15 to 20. But growing. They've targeted 3 smaller packs in the past week. Victoria's expression was grim. It seems your demonstration of Luna power has inspired some imitators, ones without your moral compass. Kane entered the communications center, followed by Rebecca, one of the rescued Lunas who had chosen to stay and help establish their new programs. The former captive had thrown herself into the work of helping other trauma survivors, and her insights had proven invaluable. The Council of Alphas just sent their official response to the Damon situation, Kane reported, handing Sera a formal document. They're not entirely pleased. Sera scanned the letter, her expression darkening with each line. They're questioning my authority to strip an alpha of his status? They want a formal review of my actions. Old boys club protecting their own, Rebecca said with disgust. They don't like the precedent you've set, that Lunas can hold alphas accountable for their crimes. Let them question it, Sera said firmly. Every wolf who is freed from Damon's compound, every pack that no longer has to fear his threats, every Luna who sleeps safely because she knows she can't be collected like a trophy, they're all the justification I need. Through the mate bond, she felt Kane's fierce pride, but also his concern. Taking on individual threats like Damon was one thing. Challenging the entire supernatural power structure was something else entirely. Luna, came a tentative voice from the doorway. Michelle, the youngest of the rescued Lunas, stood holding a tablet with obvious excitement. I've been monitoring supernatural news networks, and you need to see this. The tablet screen showed a news broadcast from the Supernatural Broadcasting Network, where a reporter was interviewing 3 young she-wolves in what appeared to be a safe house. Couldn't believe it when we heard, one of them was saying. Luna's Sera actually did it. She took down Damon Blackthorn and freed his captives. For the first time in years, we thought maybe someone would help us too. These 3 females escaped from a trafficking operation in Nevada, the reporter explained. They've been hiding for months, afraid to approach any established packs for fear of being returned to their captors. But Sera's actions have given them hope that the supernatural world might finally be willing to protect its most vulnerable members. Sera felt something click into place in her chest, a sense of destiny that went far beyond leading one pack, no matter how large it had grown. "Victoria," she said quietly, "how many requests for assistance have we received since the Damon incident?" 47 in the past 3 weeks, Victoria replied immediately. Everything from rogue problems to territorial disputes to reports of corruption. Most of them are from smaller packs that feel they have nowhere else to turn. "And how many have we been able to help? Directly?"
12.
"But our reputation alone has resolved at least 20 more. Just knowing there's a Luna willing to intervene has made some aggressors back down." Sera moved to the window overlooking their expanded territory. In the courtyard below, she could see former Shadowcrest warriors training alongside longtime Crescent Moon members. Children from 6 different packs played together while their mothers attended therapy sessions led by the rescued Lunas. What they'd built here wasn't just a pack anymore, it was proof that the supernatural world could be better. "Kane," she said suddenly, "what would happen if we formally declared ourselves a sanctuary territory?" Kane considered the question carefully. "Legally, we'd have the right to accept refugees and displaced wolves without interference from their original packs. We could offer formal protection to anyone seeking asylum."
He paused.
"Politically, it would essentially declare us independent from the traditional pack structure. The Council of Alphas would see it as a direct challenge to their authority." "Good," Sera said simply, "because that's exactly what it is." The silence in the room was absolute as everyone processed the implications of what she was suggesting. "Sera," Rebecca said carefully, "are you talking about seceding from the pack system entirely?" "I'm talking about creating something new," Sera replied, turning back to face them. "The current system allows wolves like Damon to thrive while punishing anyone who tries to stop them. It prioritizes territorial politics over protecting the innocent. It treats Lunas as bargaining chips instead of leaders in their own right." Her Luna power began to radiate through the room. "That system is broken, and I'm done pretending it can be fixed from within." Kane stepped forward, studying her face intently. Through their mate bond, she felt his mixture of awe, concern, and unwavering support. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked. "A formal declaration that this territory operates under Luna law rather than traditional pack hierarchy," Sera explained. "Any wolf, regardless of rank, pack affiliation, or past circumstances, can petition for sanctuary here. We provide protection, healing, and the chance to build a new life." Her eyes blazed with silver light. "And we actively intervene when we encounter wolves who abuse the system for personal gain." Victoria was already pulling up legal databases on her tablet. "It's technically possible under the old laws," she reported. "There are provisions for sanctuary territories dating back centuries, but they haven't been invoked in over 200 years. Because no Luna has been powerful enough to enforce them," Michelle added with growing excitement. "But you are." "The political fallout would be enormous," Kane warned. "The Council would almost certainly vote to revoke our territorial rights. Other Alphas might see us as a threat to their authority and band together against us." "Let them try," Sera said with quiet confidence. "We've gone from 63 wolves to nearly 100 in 3 weeks, and more are arriving every day. Most of them are wolves who've been failed by the traditional system. They'll fight twice as hard to protect something better." A soft chime from the communications array interrupted their discussion. Victoria moved to answer it, then turned back with a strange expression. "Luna," she said slowly, "we have a visitor. Elder Catherine from the Western Council wants to speak with you privately. She says it's about matters of historical significance." Elder Catherine was the oldest living member of the Council of Alphas, rumored to be over 300 years old. If she was traveling here personally instead of sending an official delegation, it meant something significant was happening. "Show her in," Sera decided. "Everyone else, continue planning. We'll need detailed proposals for sanctuary protocols if we're going to move forward with this." Elder Catherine entered the communications center with the slow, careful movements of extreme age, but her pale eyes were sharp with intelligence and something that looked like anticipation. "Luna Sera," the ancient wolf said formally. "Thank you for agreeing to see me. Elder Catherine, to what do I owe the honor?" Catherine settled into a chair with obvious relief. "I've come to discuss your recent actions regarding Alpha Daemon and their implications for the supernatural community." She paused, studying Sera intently. "But first, I need to ask you a direct question. Do you know what you are?" Sera frowned. "I'm a Luna. Luna born of the Blackwood bloodline." "Yes, but more specifically, do you know what kind of Luna you are?" Catherine's eyes held ancient knowledge. "Your grandmother Isadora was powerful, certainly, but what you did to Daemon, that level of authority, the ability to strip an alpha of his very nature, that's not ordinary Luna magic." A chill ran down Sera's spine. "Then what is it?" Catherine smiled, and for the first time since arriving, she looked pleased rather than concerned. "You're a prime Luna, child. The firstborn in over 500 years. The words hit Sera like lightning. Prime Lunas were legendary figures from supernatural history. Lunas so powerful they could command multiple packs, reshape territorial boundaries, and serve as judges over other supernatural beings. "That's impossible," Sera whispered. "Is it? You've united former enemies into loyal allies. You've grown your pack exponentially in a matter of weeks. You stripped a corrupt alpha of his power and authority through sheer force of will." Catherine leaned forward. "Most tellingly, you've instinctively moved toward creating a sanctuary territory, something only a prime Luna can properly establish and maintain." Kane's shock flooded through their mate bond, but beneath it, Sera felt his recognition that this explained so much about her rapid development and unprecedented abilities. "Why are you telling me this?" Sera asked. "Because the council needs to understand what they're dealing with," Catherine replied bluntly. "Some members want to censure you for overstepping traditional authority. Others want to eliminate you before you become too powerful." Her expression grew serious. "But a few of us remember the old stories about Prime Lunas. We know that trying to suppress or control one is not just futile, it's dangerous for everyone involved." "And what do those stories say about Prime Lunas?" Catherine's smile returned. "That they appear when the supernatural world needs them most. When old systems have become corrupt and new leadership is required." She stood slowly. "The last Prime Luna, Luna Aurelia, ended the supernatural wars of 1523 by creating the first interspecies peace treaties. Before that, Prime Luna Morgana established the territorial system that kept packs from warring constantly." The weight of that legacy settled on Sera's shoulders like a mantle. She'd thought becoming Luna of one pack was overwhelming. Now she was learning she might be destined for something far greater. "What does the council expect from me?" she asked. "That depends on what you expect from yourself," Catherine replied cryptically. "But Luna Sera, I'll give you some advice from someone who's lived long enough to see history repeat itself. Don't let fear of your own power hold you back. The supernatural world needs change, and you might be the only one strong enough to provide it." After Catherine left, Sera stood in silence for long minutes, processing everything she'd learned. Prime Luna, the first in 5 centuries, destined to reshape the supernatural world. "How are you feeling?"
Kane asked gently.
"Terrified," Sera admitted. "Yesterday, I was worried about managing one expanded pack. Now I'm apparently supposed to revolutionize supernatural society." "You don't have to do anything," Kane reminded her. "You can choose to be just the Luna of Crescent Moon Pack, build our sanctuary, help the wolves who come to us, and let the rest of the world sort itself out." Sera considered that option seriously. It would be easier, safer, more manageable. She could focus on the wolves already under her protection and leave the larger problems to someone else. But even as she thought it, she knew it wasn't really an option. Not when she had the power to help and wolves were suffering because the system was broken. "No," she said finally. "I can't turn my back on wolves who need help just because it's easier for me. If I'm really a Prime Luna, then I need to act like one." Through the mate bond, Kane's love and pride washed over her like a warm tide. "Then we'll face whatever comes next together." "Together," Sera agreed. taking his hand. But Kane, this is going to change everything. If we declare sanctuary status and I start actively challenging corrupt alphas, we'll essentially be at war with the traditional power structure. Then we'd better make sure we're ready for that war, Kane replied with grim determination. As the sun set over their expanded territory, Sera began planning for a future she'd never imagined. Tomorrow, she would begin the process of formally establishing the first prime Luna sanctuary in 5 centuries. The supernatural world was about to discover what happened when its most vulnerable members found a champion willing to fight for them. Chapter 12. The formal declaration ceremony took place exactly 1 month after Sera's transformation from Outcast to Luna. Representatives from 47 packs had arrived to witness what many were calling the most significant event in supernatural politics in centuries. The ancient amphitheater carved into the mountainside had been restored for the occasion, its stone tiers filled with wolves from across North America. Sera stood at the center of the ceremonial circle, wearing a crown that had been crafted specifically for the occasion. Unlike her simple Luna circlet, this was clearly the regalia of a prime Luna, silver and moonstone interwoven with crystals that seemed to hold captured starlight. Her formal robes flowed around her like liquid shadow shot through with silver thread. "We gather today," Elder Catherine announced, her ancient voice carrying clearly through the amphitheater, to witness Luna Sera Blackwood's formal claim to prime Luna status and the establishment of the first sanctuary territory in 500 years. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some approving, others skeptical, and a few openly hostile. The Council of Alphas had split almost evenly on whether to support or oppose Sera's declaration, creating unprecedented political tension in the supernatural community. Kane stood at Sera's right side, magnificent in his formal alpha regalia. Victoria flanked her left, having fully embraced her new role as Sera's beta and chief enforcer. Around the circle, the rescued Lunas and former Shadowcrest warriors formed an honor guard that symbolized everything Sera's sanctuary represented. "Luna Sera," Elder Catherine continued, "do you swear to uphold the ancient duties of a prime Luna? To protect the innocent, judge the corrupt, and maintain the balance between justice and mercy?" "I swear," Sera replied, her Luna voice carrying harmonics that made the very stones of the amphitheater resonate. "Do you claim the right to offer sanctuary to any supernatural being who seeks protection from persecution or abuse?" "I claim that right. And do you accept the responsibility that comes with that right? To defend your sanctuary against all threats, to judge disputes fairly, and to intervene when lesser authorities fail to protect those under their care?" This was the crucial moment. By accepting this responsibility, Sera would be declaring herself independent of traditional pack hierarchy and authorized to take action across territorial boundaries. "I accept that responsibility," Sera declared, her power radiating outward in visible waves of silver light. The formal ceremony continued for another hour, with ancient oaths and ritualistic exchanges that bound Sera to her new role. But the real drama began when the time came for other alphas to formally recognize her authority, or challenge it. Alpha Marcus from Pine Ridge Pack stepped forward first. "Prime Luna Sera, Pine Ridge Pack formally recognizes your sanctuary status and requests mutual defense agreements." 7 more smaller pack alphas followed suit, each one representing territories that had felt abandoned or threatened by the traditional system. But then Alpha Reynolds of the North Shore Pack rose from his seat. "I object to these proceedings," he announced, his voice carrying clearly through the amphitheater. "Luna Sera Blackwood has not proven herself worthy of prime Luna status through any recognized testing. She's declared war on established authority based on a single victory against a rogue alpha." Hostile murmurs rose from Reynolds' supporters, while Sera's allies responded with angry snarls. The ceremonial gathering was on the verge of becoming a riot. "Alpha Reynolds," Elder Catherine said sharply, "what exactly are you proposing?" "A formal challenge," Reynolds replied, stepping into the ceremonial circle. "If Luna Sera truly believes she has the authority to override centuries of pack law and territorial agreements, let her prove it in combat against a legitimate alpha." The crowd fell silent. Reynolds was known as one of the most skilled fighters among the regional alphas, with a pack of over 150 wolves backing him. More importantly, he was positioning this as a test of Sera's right to claim Prime Luna authority. "The challenge is noted," Elder Catherine said formally. "Luna Sera, how do you respond?" Sera looked around the amphitheater, seeing the faces of wolves who had traveled hundreds of miles to witness this moment. Some watched with hope, refugees and outcasts who saw her as their only chance for justice. Others watched with skepticism or fear, uncertain whether she could deliver on the promises she was making. But what decided her response was the sight of 3 young females in the honor section, the trafficking victims who had escaped from Nevada and made their way to her sanctuary. They watched her with absolute faith that she would continue fighting for wolves like them. "I accept Alpha Reynolds' challenge," Sera said, her voice carrying across the amphitheater without strain. "But I propose modified terms." Reynolds' eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What modifications?" "Traditional single combat to determine the winner, but instead of death or submission, victory goes to whoever can demonstrate superior leadership through practical application." Sera's power began building around her like a visible aura. "We each have 1 week to address a real crisis using our respective methods. The one who achieves the better outcome for all involved wins the challenge and settles the question of my authority." It was a brilliant modification that played to Sera's strengths while avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. Reynolds couldn't refuse without appearing afraid of actual leadership testing, but the terms would allow Sera to demonstrate her unique approach to problem-solving. "What crisis?" Reynolds demanded. Elder Catherine consulted a tablet, then looked up with something that might have been approval. "The Midwest Rogue Coalition has been recruiting aggressively and threatening multiple pack territories. They've demanded tribute payments and territorial concessions from 7 different packs. Traditional enforcement has failed to stop them. They simply relocate when pressured." She paused. "Whichever alpha can eliminate this threat most effectively wins the challenge." Reynolds smiled confidently. "Acceptable. I'll mobilize my warriors and crush these rogues within the week." "And I'll find a more permanent solution," Sera replied. The challenge was set, with both alphas agreeing to report their progress to a neutral monitoring committee. As the ceremonial gathering dispersed, Sera found herself surrounded by allies and well-wishers. "Are you sure about this approach?" Kane asked privately through their mate bond. "Reynolds has twice our warrior strength. But I have something he doesn't," Sera replied, watching the trafficking survivors being welcomed by other sanctuary residents. "I understand why wolves become rogues in the first place." The next morning, Sera did something that shocked everyone. Instead of mobilizing for military action, she requested a meeting with the Midwest Rogue Coalition leadership. "You want to negotiate with them?" Victoria asked incredulously. "Sera, they're threatening multiple packs. Negotiation will be seen as weakness." "Sometimes what looks like weakness is actually wisdom," Sera replied, studying intelligence reports about the Rogue Coalition. "Look at their recruitment pattern. They're not targeting happy, well-integrated pack members. They're recruiting outcasts, exiles, and wolves who've been failed by the traditional system." Kane leaned over her shoulder to examine the data. "You think they're not just criminals, they're symptoms of deeper problems." "Exactly. Reynolds will scatter them with superior force, and they'll just regroup somewhere else with more grievances and better weapons. But if I can address the root causes..." "You could eliminate the threat permanently," Rebecca finished, understanding dawning in her voice. The meeting took place in neutral territory, an abandoned mining town that had been deserted since the 1970s. Sera arrived with a minimal guard, a decision that had Kane pacing with worry despite his support for her strategy. The Rogue Coalition leadership was exactly what she'd expected, a mix of exiled wolves, outcasts from various packs, and refugees from territories that had been absorbed or destroyed by larger powers. Their leader was a scarred woman named Diana, who looked like she hadn't slept well in years. "Prime Luna," Diana said mockingly as Sera approached under a flag of truce. "Come to surrender before we have to take what we need by force." "I've come to offer you something better than tribute payments," Sera replied calmly. "I'm offering you a chance to stop running." Diana's laugh was bitter.
"Right.
"Let me guess. Submit to your authority and all our problems disappear?" "Not submit. Join." Sera's power radiated outward, but instead of dominance, it carried the warmth of acceptance and belonging. How many of your coalition members are here because they had nowhere else to go? How many were exiled for minor infractions or driven out by political conflicts they had no control over? The effect on the assembled rogues was immediate. Sera's Luna presence didn't try to force submission. Instead, it offered the sense of pack belonging they'd all been craving. Every wolf under my protection gets a fresh start, Sera continued. Past crimes are forgiven if you're willing to build something better. Territory disputes are resolved through mediation rather than warfare. No one gets cast out for being different or inconvenient. And in return? Diana asked, but her hostile posture had relaxed slightly. In return, you help me build a system that prevents other wolves from ending up in your situation. You use your experience and skills to protect the vulnerable instead of preying on them. It took 3 days of intense negotiation, but in the end, 43 of the 57 coalition members chose to accept sanctuary status. The remaining 14, led by Diana, agreed to relocate to territories outside the region in exchange for safe passage and supplies. When the week ended, Reynolds had scattered the rogue forces through superior military action, but the survivors had simply regrouped in a different region and begun recruiting again. Sera had eliminated the threat entirely by addressing its underlying causes and converting most of the rogues into productive sanctuary residents. The challenge goes to Prime Luna Sera, Elder Catherine announced at the results ceremony. She has demonstrated that true leadership involves understanding and solving problems rather than simply overpowering them. Reynolds accepted the decision with grudging respect, and several more packs formally requested sanctuary agreements in the aftermath. But the real victory came 3 months later, when Diana returned with the 14 rogues who had relocated. They had tried to continue their old lifestyle but found it hollow without the purpose and belonging they'd glimpsed during negotiations. Prime Luna, Diana said as she knelt in Sera's office, if the offer is still open, my wolves and I would like to earn our place in your sanctuary. The offer is always open, Sera replied, helping Diana to her feet. Welcome home. As the first year of her Prime Luna status drew to a close, Sera stood on her balcony, looking out over a territory that now housed nearly 300 wolves from dozens of different packs. The sanctuary had become a model for supernatural cooperation, and delegations arrived weekly to study their methods. Any regrets? Kane asked, joining her in their nightly ritual. Only that it took me so long to understand what I was meant to do, Sera replied, leaning into his warmth. A year ago I was eating scraps in the kitchen and wondering why I couldn't shift. Now I'm reshaping supernatural society. The universe has a sense of timing, Kane observed. You needed to experience powerlessness to understand how to use power responsibly. Through the mate bond, Sera felt his absolute confidence in her leadership and their shared future. Below them, their expanded pack moved through its evening routines, former enemies working together, rescued victims finding strength and purpose, outcasts discovering they belonged somewhere after all. From outcast to Luna to Prime Luna in just over a year. But as she watched her people thriving under her protection, Sera knew the most important transformation had been internal, learning that true strength came not from power over others, but from the willingness to use that power in service of something greater than herself. The supernatural world still had problems to solve and injustices to address. But for the first time in centuries, it had a Prime Luna willing and able to fight for meaningful change. And that, Sera reflected with satisfaction, was exactly what it needed. End of Chapter 12. Epilogue. 1 year later. The annual sanctuary celebration filled the mountain valley with joy, laughter, and the scent of feast foods from dozens of different pack traditions. What had begun as a small ceremony to mark the anniversary of Sera's Prime Luna declaration had grown into the largest supernatural gathering in North America. Sera moved through the celebration, her crown replaced by a simple silver circlet that better suited the informal atmosphere. Everywhere she looked, she saw success stories, former rogues who had become respected pack members, rescued trafficking victims who now helped other survivors, alpha couples who had learned to resolve disputes through mediation rather than warfare. Luna, called a familiar voice. Michelle, the youngest of the original rescued Lunas, approached with a young man whose scent marked him as a newly bonded mate.
I
Wanted you to meet David. He's from the Pine Ridge Pack, and we're planning to establish a new sanctuary territory in Oregon. Congratulations, Sera said warmly, embracing them both. You'll do amazing work there. It was becoming a common pattern. Wolves who had found healing in her sanctuary were now establishing their own communities based on the same principles of acceptance and protection. The movement was spreading organically, creating a network of safe havens across the continent. Prime Luna, came another voice, this one more formal. Alpha Reynolds approached with his mate and teenage daughter. I wanted to thank you for mediating our territory dispute with the Mountain View Pack. Your solution was innovative. Sometimes the best boundaries are the ones that bring people together rather than keeping them apart, Sera replied, remembering the joint wildlife preserve that had resolved the two packs' overlapping territorial claims while providing economic benefits to both. As the celebration continued into the evening, Sera found herself drawn to a quiet spot overlooking the valley. The sight below was everything she had dreamed of during those dark nights as an outcast. Wolves from dozens of different packs mingling freely, children playing together regardless of their bloodlines, adults sharing stories and traditions across old territorial boundaries. Reflecting on your empire? Kane asked, settling beside her on the stone bench. Not an empire, Sera corrected. A family. A really, really big family. Kane laughed, his arms sliding around her waist with the easy familiarity of their deepened mate bond. A family that includes 300 wolves across 12 sanctuary territories, with 5 more sites under development. And every single one of them choosing to be here rather than being forced, Sera added with satisfaction. That's what makes all the difference. Have I mentioned lately that I'm incredibly proud of you? Kane murmured against her ear. Only every day, Sera replied, leaning into his warmth. But I don't mind hearing it again. As the full moon rose over their celebration, Sera felt a deep sense of completion. Not the ending of her story, but the end of its beginning. She was no longer the broken wolf wondering why she couldn't fit in. She was the prime Luna who had created a place where no wolf would ever have to feel that way again. From outcast to Luna to the most powerful supernatural leader of her generation, all because she had refused to accept that the way things were was the way they had to be. And as she looked out over the valley filled with wolves who had found their own paths from darkness to light, Sera knew that her greatest transformation was still ahead of her, helping them all build a world where power served love, where strength protected the vulnerable, and where every wolf could find their place in the pack. The outcast had become Luna, and the Luna had become legend.
The end.